brings the issues of the day into clear focus through the lens of a Judeo-Christian worldview. And now, here is your host, Brannon Howse.
And good evening. Welcome to the broadcast on this Monday night, March 30th, 2026. We got a lot to cover tonight. We're going to have on Patrick Wood, Courtenay Turner. We're going to have on Michael Weiner to talk about your 401k, because we've got an article today that has to do with companies maybe taking your retirement account and investing it in shadow banking. What is that about? You got to see some of this. We got a lot of video clips to play. Also, more things coming out about people not being able to cash in on their investments. Caps being put into place. I don't know, almost a form of capital controls. Banks, we don't have any cash. We have no cash. You show up at the bank and they're like, we don't have cash. Well, oh, okay. We have cash tomorrow? No, we don't do cash. Wait a minute, you're a bank, right? Yeah, but we don't do cash. Oh, this is happening in one country. You got to hear about it tonight with Michael Weiner, because it kind of fits what we've been talking about for a long time. We're going to be joined tonight by Patrick Wood as well, because President Trump has admitted there's a basically, well, he didn't say basically, that he said there is a very large underground facility under the ballroom being built by the U.S. military. Could it be a data center? Let's talk about that. And Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, yesterday, he said that the military is they're working on a greater North America. Remember when 2005, we really started talking about a North American Union, and we're called all kinds of names, conspiracy theorists and whatnot. Well, Pete Hegseth yesterday gave a speech, and we have a clip of it, and he says they are working on a North American Union. And when you look at the map of the North American Union, voila, it looks just like the Technate map of the 1930s of the transhumanists, the technocrats, more accurately, the technocrats of the 1930s. Wow, a greater North American project. We'll talk about that with Patrick Wood. And then robots. I got some videos to play for you about robots, because they are making great strides, these robots are. And who doesn't enjoy a good robot video? We'll do that. Then we're going to go to Courtenay Turner. Let's talk about some of these influencers. Are these influencers really what you think they are? Are they just average Joe Blows that are interested in America and America first and nationalism? Or is this an orchestrated agenda, maybe by foreign governments or even our own military and intelligence community, to push the American people toward what the military industrial complex and the intelligence arena really wants? And that would, of course, your big tech guys would be in there. Don't the big tech guys work with the CIA and work with the intelligence community, work with the military? So I don't know, since the elimination of President Kennedy, haven't they all pretty much been running the country? We'll find out tonight what Courtenay Turner thinks about that. Let's see, what else do we got, boys? We have a lot of things to cover tonight. Maybe we should just get to it instead of telling you what we're going to talk about. With that being said, have you seen this? You know, one of the things we've talked about here for many years is the, some 5,000 man pads that were Russian-made man pads floating around Venezuela, and our concern that they might take down an airliner here in the U.S. if they got into the U.S., smuggled in the U.S., or brought in by another group of people not even tied to Venezuela that could knock down some of our airliners in a horrific attack. Well, turns out, I guess, you have to worry about some of our own military people getting a hold of these devices, similar devices. I found this today coming from a news station out of Arizona. Listen to this, please.
It was a Javelin missile system like the one seen here, a weapon of war used thousands of times in Iraq and Afghanistan that authorities say was stolen by an Arizona Marine. Investigators found the missile system at a Glendale business that operates gun shows across the country. They also found several cans of ammo, specifically manufactured and sold to the U.S. military. Court documents show that ammo can be a threat to law enforcement and civilians. Corporal Andrew Almarias was indicted this week, accused of stealing that equipment from Camp Pendleton, where he was based, and then selling it here in Arizona.
Wow, there you go. How many of you heard that story? That's kind of concerning, is it not? Donald Trump, President Trump, but he was just Donald Trump back in, I think, what was 1987. This video is going around. Look at what he had to say reportedly back in 1987 about Iran.
Because I'm running for the presidency. I'm here because I'm personally tired of seeing this great country of ours being ripped off.
But as far as Trump is concerned, our allies are only part of the problem. The real culprit is Iran.
Why couldn't we go in and take over some of their oil, which is along the sea?
How would you do that? Would you send in the Marines? Would you take a chance in a war?
Let them have Iran. You take their oil. That's what
How?
How?
I mean, do we want a war? What do you mean we take their oil?
You go in.
How do we go in?
You're going to have a war by being weak.
Okay, how do we go in? What do we do?
Excuse me.
Yeah.
You're going to have a war. And it's going to start in the Middle East.
What if the Soviet Union said, you do this to Iran, we're going to come in?
I don't believe they'd do it. The next time Iran attacks this country, go in and grab one of their big oil installations. And I mean grab it and keep it. And get back your losses, because this country has lost plenty because of Iran.
Wow. That was reportedly 1987. That's been going around. A lot of people find that interesting. So there you go. A lot to talk about tonight. We'll get into Alexander Dugin, a little bit more on him tonight as well, what many people are calling Putin's brain. All right. So tweet, text, email, Facebook, Getter, Truth Social, whatever it is you do, let folks know we are on. Worldviewtube.com/sponsors is another place I want you to go real quick before we go to Patrick. This is where, of course, you're going to find a lot of the great products that we take and consume each and every day. Gatatana, one little scoop is the equivalent of 90 billion plant cells. And the other day, the pet product went off the site because it sold out. It's that popular. Well, we give half a scoop to Dolly each and every day. Go to melissahousegpa.com if you want to go right to the website, melissahousegpa.com, or worldviewtube.com/sponsors get you to all of them. By the way, did you know that if you click here, you can listen to Worldview Tube whenever you want as a podcast? Look at that, Logan. Accept all. What do you make of that, Logan? Let me go back real quick. I just clicked off of it, he says. All right, click on it again. Click OK. All right. There you go. You can choose Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, or you can, see all. Oh, yeah, look at that. See all. And what that allows you to do is go through and listen to all of our shows as they get posted as audio, right, Logan? Yep. And apparently, I didn't know this. Apparently, we have thousands upon thousands upon thousands of you doing this. So Logan was reading these stats off to me the other day. I'm like, where's all this coming from? He said, Spotify and all these other Apple Podcasts and whatnot. So there you go. How did I get there again? For those who want to just listen to audio, you just go to worldviewtube.com/sponsors and you'll find our Worldview Tube podcast. There you go. Very popular, I'm told. Of course, Squish for Life, that's Numi. That's got the glutathione in it to detox your cells. Swish for about 3 minutes, swallow it or spit it out, whichever you prefer to do. But you're getting glutathione, which is all natural to your body, but starts to decrease around age 20. You're getting it back into your body. You can't live without glutathione. There's 165,000 studies on glutathione at PubMed. And we swish with this all the time. We do Gatatana, we do Numi, and we do the Bella Grace. There it is, Bella Grace. And it's not just the elixir that I take, which I've been taking a lot of that to decrease the inflammation to help with my herniated C6 and C7, which, by the way, I'm also doing the shots of the, what is it called again, Logan? The what is it called? The BPC 157, that peptide. So I'm doing much better. Thank you for asking. I still do quite a bit of ice, but I'm just trying to get back to 100%. But I've been doubling up on the Bella Grace because of the cat's claw in there, which is the anti-inflammatory. But it's not just the wonderful elixir. There's also the skincare that Melissa loves. There's the Bella Melts. Some people are losing up to 4 to 7 pounds regularly on this. So there you go. Check it out. That stimulates your body's natural GLP-1. So Bella Grace. And then, of course, we have the Worldview Talk That is your satellite phones. I have one. I travel with it, never go out of town without it. Satellite phones, that's your solar generators, that's your bulletproof backpacks, so many things. Check it out there at worldviewtalk.com. Make sure you have all your medical antibiotics ready to go so you can be your own urgent care, if you will. When we travel, we bring that satellite phone with us, and we bring one or two of the medical kits here from Worldview Healthcare. So we always have our antibiotics with us. I don't want to try to go to urgent care anytime, particularly out of town, though. But if I know what I've got, I just need an antibiotic, I do it. I don't take them like candy. That's not a good idea. But when I know I have what only is going to be fixed by antibiotic, then I have it with us at all times. WorldviewWater.net. Filtering your water so you're not drinking toxins and poisons. And of course, dollyfood.shop. This is what we feed to Dolly and to Pearl. They absolutely, positively love it. You'll find all of this at worldviewtube.com/sponsors, which helps keep us on the air, pushing out great product. We got to get going. Joining me now is Patrick Wood, author of The Final Betrayal. Well, we've been saying, Patrick, that I think that ballroom is actually maybe needed, but I think it's cover for a big old data center underneath it. That if you're going to run the government with AI, where else would you put it that would be more secure than perhaps the White House, and where a president could run a war and run the government and day-to-day operations from a secure location underground? It would make sense. And now it appears maybe that's exactly what was going on. And we talked about this several months ago. Watch this from Air Force One this weekend.
Now the military is building a big complex under the ballroom.
What? The military. Now, we knew that. He's let that out before, but now he's getting more forthright with it. I think it might be due to a lawsuit forcing some stuff.
Is building a big complex under the ballroom, which has come out recently because of a stupid lawsuit that was filed. But the military is building a massive complex under the ballroom, and that's under construction, and we're doing very well. So we're ahead of schedule. That's part.
Hey, wait. A massive. A
stupid lawsuit that was filed, but the military is building a massive complex under the ballroom, and that's under construction, and we're doing very well. So we're ahead of schedule. That's part of it. The ballroom essentially becomes a shed for what's being built under the military, including from drones.
Wait a minute. The ballroom becomes a shed?
The ballroom essentially becomes a shed for what's being built under the military, including from drones and including from any other thing. The glass on the windows, you see the big windows, the glass is extremely thick. It's high-grade bulletproof glass, so all of the windows are bulletproof. I think the Times wrote, gee, some of the windows are fake. We have no fake windows. They talked about a stairway in the South. We don't have a stairway in the South. That was replaced a long time ago. But this is...
There you go. It's going to be a humongous something underground, protected from drones and other things, bulletproof glass. The ballroom will be a shed for what's underneath it. And he says it's massive under there. So maybe it's living quarters in case there's a war and he has to go down there and live and run a war from there. I think they did a bunch of building underground already during the Obama years. So I think they already have a lot of that kind of thing. What do you think's going on here, Patrick? What has your research shown?
Just what it says. I think this is what's going on, and we don't know how deep it is at this point. I haven't seen, for instance, truckloads of dirt being removed from the site, but maybe they could do that at night and hide it. But this is par for the course at this point. This is massive for sure. It could go down as much as 6 or 8 stories down in the ground if they are excavating for it. So there you go.
Wow. Well, when he says massive, I mean, President Trump has done a lot of construction. So I don't think he'd be talking. I don't think he'd be talking about it in that big of terms if it wasn't really something quite large. Do you?
You would think so. And somebody suggested that the cost of the whole thing, I think it was going to be like $300 million, something like that for the whole thing. And that's on probably on par for other underground structures that the military has built around, well, at least in some other countries. And, this can't be just for the ballroom itself, I don't think. So who knows? And the military, they have their own budget, and that might not even be included at all at this point.
Well, it looks like a lawsuit he said a dumb lawsuit has kind of forced their hand. So they're out talking about it. I don't think they really wanted to, but I think
probably not.
This lawsuit sounds like it's kind of forced their hand. Yes. We'll keep track of it. But your guess is there are going to be a lot of data centers under there.
Well, maybe one data center, but it could also be like a command center, possibly, to control other data centers around the country. You can't just run the country on one data center itself. The military has several at this point. So this could be like a control structure for everything. Maybe this is where the master iteration of Palantir will run. Who knows?
But you have to have a lot of backups and duplicates.
Yes. Yeah, you would think so.
Now, did you hear what Pete Hegseth, Secretary of War, said over the weekend about Technate and North American Union?
I didn't hear. I didn't hear that yet.
Well, I'm glad I can break some news for you sometimes instead of the other way around.
Indeed.
All right, listen to what this is going to put your jaw on the ground. Here we go.
That is why President Trump has drawn a new strategic map from Greenland to the Gulf of America to the Panama Canal and its surrounding countries. At the Department of War, we call this strategic map the Greater North America. Why? Because every sovereign nation and territory north of the equator, from Greenland to Ecuador and from Alaska to Guyana, is not part of the global South. It is our security perimeter in this great neighborhood that we all live in. Each one of these countries border either the North Atlantic or the North Pacific. Each one of these countries sits north of the two basic geographic barriers that exist in this region, the Amazon and the Andes Mountains. This is basic geography that we don't teach in schools as much as we should. And it restores our north-south relations, and we must get it right. In the north, the United States must enhance posture and presence in cooperation with you and our sovereign partners to defend our shared immediate security perimeter. In the south, meaning south of the equator, the other side of this great neighborhood, we will strengthen partnerships through increased burden sharing. This will enable you to take your greater role to defend the South Atlantic and the South Pacific, and to secure critical infrastructure and resources in partnership with us and other Western nations. This is what we did in World War II, just like we sunk ships with torpedoes in World War II. At the Department of War, we called it the quarter sphere defense. And we will do this again.
Okay, now that's their video that's acting that way, and I don't know why, but C-SPAN put that out. Maybe they had no choice. Maybe that's the way it received back in their headquarters. But notice he said, what did he call this, folks? Listen here.
Surrounding countries. At the Department of War, we call this strategic map the Greater North America.
The Greater North America. Now, we've been saying for years here that we were headed toward a North American Union. We know that like one of the first big pushes for that came under George W. Bush. Again, we've played the video of the the president of Mexico, Vicente Fox, on Larry King, when asked about an Amero, a common currency. Oh, that's down the line. He didn't deny it. He said, that's down the line. We've talked about that. A North American Union only be called conspiracy theorist. And then Joe Biden signed an executive order on a North American Union. Now this is the Greater North American Union. Hey, I'd like to know if some of the anti-Semites out there that are criticizing Israel for making buffer zones when countries pick a war with them and they go to war and they end up grabbing some of the land in these countries that butts up next to Israel and they grab it and keep it as a buffer zone. What's the first thing you hear out of their mouth? The anti-Semites. Oh, this is the Greater Israel Project. This is a Greater Israel Project. somehow thinking that they're going for the whole Genesis 15 landmass. I don't think most of them are. But if you pick a war with Israel and they decide to take some of the land in that war because they won and make it a buffer, well, that's their right to do. Isn't that what we just heard Pete Hegseth say? This is going to be the greater North American project, and it's going to give us buffer and security. Why is it okay for America but not Israel when someone picks a fight with them and they go to war and they get some land and keep it for a buffer? I mean, you notice this double standard, Patrick?
It seems that way, exactly. But this whole, the Technate, as we call it, the North American Technate, this has been around since at least 1934. And
you mean this map here?
That's the map.
And you and I have been talking about that for what, 2 years now?
Oh gosh, I've been talking about it for a long time. This is one of the first things that, well, when I first got my original copy of the Technocracy study course, it's on the cover of the book. It's just right there. So we've seen it for a long time. And you look at South America. You have the top of South America just above the equator, and all the way up to Greenland. This was they never said how they're going to get this territory in the first place. They didn't have any military back then. They didn't have any money to buy anything, and it was basically smoke and mirrors, I guess. But they never said how they're going to get this whole thing together. But now Trump has come along and say, "Oh, I see the logic of this thing. Let's do it." And so he's done it. And the military is backing the whole thing up at this point. And I'm not sure how Canada's going to feel about it.
That was my next question. How are they going to convince Canada of this? What about Mexico?
Same thing with Mexico. They don't want any part of us. Basically, Mexico doesn't want anything to do with us. They'd like to conquer us if they could, but
yeah, they want California, they want Texas, they want parts of Arizona. The La Raza movement, the race.
That's right, La Raza. Yeah, crazy. So this is just a continuation of what we said all along, and it wasn't just about defense, I don't think, in the first place. It was about the economic system that they're trying to create. And when you look at this whole block together, it makes a lot of sense economically. And if somebody could get their hands on this stretch of land, they would be a rich country beyond measure, put it that way, with resources in Mexico, the resources in Canada, holy mackerel, all the oil they have up there, natural gas, energy coming out their ears. You have rare earth minerals all over the place, and the north section of that, this whole strip. And
this, by
Mexico,
the way, just happened yesterday. Silver. That's why one reason why maybe you haven't seen it is this just happened yesterday. Here's the Business Standard. U.S. unveils greater North America strategy to redefine regional security. And apparently he went there to Florida, speaking at the U.S. Southern Command headquarters in Doral, Florida. He said the administration's strategic vision stretches from Greenland to the Gulf of America to the Panama Canal, encompassing all sovereign countries' territories north of the equator within, quote, immediate security perimeter. He did this on Sunday, U.S. Secretary of War Hegseth on Sunday, local time. So this is brand new, folks. I saw it first thing this morning early, waking up, and I knew right away we had to get Patrick on because Patrick has been talking about that Technate map for a long, long time. And here it is. So the reason maybe you hadn't seen it is because this just happened on Sunday, which is not a normal day for a lot of this kind of business to go down, Patrick.
I was busy publishing my book on Sunday, so
we're excited about that. We're excited about that.
I know. So this is it. I think what Hegseth is saying at this point, and by the way, he I don't see any agreement from these other countries to be in this security parameters. So, or perimeter rather. So is he just blowing smoke and say you're going to do it or else, or are they just going to build a fence around the whole North American continent? I don't know exactly what he's talking about. I will say this: in 2005, when George W. Got together with the premiers of Mexico and Canada to create the North American Union, I fought that tooth and nail from 2005 to 6, and we succeeded actually. And we pushed the whole thing back, but I knew it would not go away. And this is like the third instance of the whole thing. Obama picked it up, and Sleepy Joe kind of wanted to do it as well, but now Trump has just gone over the top to make it happen.
Let's see, what else do we got here? I want to go to an article I put up today at worldviewreport.com, reported on the newscast, and when I reported on it again, I thought, oh, another topic I have to talk to Patrick about, and that is that Turkey and Syria are planning a trade corridor to rival or compete with IMEC, the international, the India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor. Here it is, Israel World News. Turkey-Syria planned corridor cutting Israel out of major intercontinental route. Turkey and Syria are planning to establish a new trade corridor linking India and Europe via the Gulf and Syria, potentially bypassing Israel, according to a report aired Sunday on Israel's national broadcast. The planned trade route takes advantage of the stabilization of post-coup Syria and offers a partial solution to Iranian disruptions of international trade through the Strait of Hormuz, which have underscored the vulnerability of regional energy and goods supply routes. The ongoing war with Iran and Tehran's partial closure of the Strait of Hormuz have refocused attention on the proposed India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor, or IMEC, a major trade route that was promoted under the Biden administration prior to October 7, 2023 massacre. IMEC had been envisioned as a strategic route connecting India to Europe through the Middle East, with Israel and Saudi Arabia expected to play central roles. The project was also seen as a potential pillar of future normalization between Jerusalem and Riyadh. According to the report, however, Turkey and Syria are now pushing for an alternate route. Wow. What do you make of this? I mean, aren't most of these wars fought over trade routes anyway?
Yes, they are. You're right. I say good luck to them. At this point, there's no technocrats in Syria for sure, and I don't think they're going to be creating a corridor like was envisioned with IMEC. But nevertheless, maybe they can pull it off. I don't know how, but if the technocrat class in Washington D.C. does not support them, it won't go anywhere.
Which again, if Syria and Turkey and Russia are all ticked over IMEC, at some point, maybe that's why they unite per Ezekiel 38 and 39 and move against Israel and the Middle East there, right?
It could be, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, now, another thing I saw a lot of stuff this week. I thought, I got to talk to Patrick. Here is another one. This has to do with robots. You request amenities at a hotel in Tokyo, Japan, and look what happens. Goodbye, blue-collar jobs.
Oh, thank you. And toothpaste.
Toothpaste and toothbrushes.
It's the guy one. Confirmed delivery. Oh, no. Oh, 5 stars.
5 stars.
Thanks. Oh. Did you get on the elevator? Should I follow it? Yeah, you should follow it.
Should I follow it to the elevator? How is it going to open the elevator? I guess we're about to find out. Thanks to these gals in Tokyo. Yeah. Look at that. It went to the elevator. Oh, the door opened. Look at that. It was waiting on the other one. It knew that door opened and went over there. Wow, isn't that something, Patrick? Have you been to a restaurant yet where your food came out by a robot?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, I have too, about 2 years ago.
I'll never go back. I'll never go back. You're right.
Logan, do I still have that video where the robot brought us our food?
Yeah.
It was a Mexican restaurant.
Okay. There was one Korean restaurant in Mesa that had a robot like that. It's just insane.
All right, here's another one. These are kind of fun to watch. Here's another one. You ready? Here we go. This one's got a panda face.
Oh, gosh.
It's getting on the elevator as well. Wow, that's something else. Now, I don't know. I was not able to confirm a report I read today, but I read a report that China is making robots, and when they're up fully running, they can make thousands a year. And it showed a factory. Let me see if I can find it while you respond to all this. I wasn't able to confirm everything about it, so I thought, well, I wouldn't play it, but it was too fun. It was too fun. I think I have to go find it now. Respond to what we're seeing, though. Add that to the robot that walked out with Melania Trump last week that's going to end up being your child's educator for custom curriculum for every child, as I wrote about in my book in 1995 was coming.
Yes.
But I didn't know it would be a humanoid, though. I thought it'd be a desktop or a laptop.
Yes. There's something special by having a humanoid robot teach you or interact with you. It's not the same as a screen. When you're looking at your screen, computer screen, it's not the same. There's certain connections in your brain that won't make a connection, an emotional connection with your screen. But with a robot, that's another story for sure. So be able to touch it, to bump it, interact with it in ways, tactile ways. This strengthens the robot's interaction with you and the relationship that you have.
Mm-hmm. Now, here it is. China supposedly launches its first fully automated humanoid robot production line with capacity of up to 10,000 robots per year. Each robot takes 30 minutes to build and goes through 77 inspection stages. Everything I found today was just this right here. It was a video of it. I haven't been able to find anybody providing narration or anything else. Everybody's providing the same video. But look at that. They're going to get to all the various parts. It's going to move to an assembly line, get put together, tested at 77 different locations. And that's a lot of robots. And that's just one factory. I mean, imagine if you did this with more than one factory.
You're right. This is basically this type of a system that Amazon is using right now. I've seen their robots that move stuff around the warehouse and the things that can pick and place things on shelves like that. This is very sophisticated, and in the case of Amazon, my guess is they'll be able to launch most of these functions and displace maybe 98% of all the human workers in their warehouse eventually.
Mm-hmm.
It's really amazing. Really is amazing.
Look at them putting its body together now.
There you go. Yeah.
They can make one every 30 minutes, they said.
Yeah. So they can make them and staff their warehouse right there on the spot.
So I saw one guy being interviewed talking about, look at him, we got him practicing walking and everything. I saw some guy being interviewed who was saying that these things aren't going to be able to do nearly what everybody thinks they are, that this is a bunch of hype. I'm like, dude, are you not watching the videos? I mean, I don't know how you can say this is a bunch of hype. These things have advanced a lot just in the last 12 months.
Yes.
Number one. Number two, even the robot that was bringing the items to the door of the hotel. You know how many people work those kind of jobs all over the world? Bringing people a blanket, an extra pillow, some toothpaste and toothbrush. You know how many people are running those kind of chores for hotels and servicing? You're talking about a lot of jobs displaced. Then can we go to the other people that are being displaced? Like, again, 2 years ago in our town, a year and a half ago in our town, a robot at a Mexican restaurant brings us our food. I mean, you're talking about a lot of jobs that start to get displaced really quickly. But to act like this isn't really happening or can't happen, as far as with any great dexterity, I'm watching videos, Patrick, where they got them working in hospitals now, at least testing them in hospitals. Have you seen that?
Yes. I have. And you have to figure that the trajectory that the robot industry is taking right now is very similar to the trajectory of AI in the first place.
Look, they're testing that thing out.
Yeah. Cranking up the bed.
Look at that. It's getting everything out.
Yeah.
You're going to let one of those things take your blood?
Or worse.
It's going to roll. It's going to roll the mom out to the street in the wheelchair with baby. Remember how the nurse would roll the mother out to the car with a brand new newborn? It's now going to be Rosie from the Jetsons rolling your daughter-in-law out to the curb with your grandchild.
Yes. So let me finish my thought about the trajectory of AI. We've already talked about how AI is advancing about every 4.5 months, 5 months maybe. It could be shorter at some point, but basically it's doubling every 4.5 months. That's a geometric curve, and it's going to go off the charts eventually. And we talked about by the time Trump is out of office, AI will have advanced probably 15,000 times. That's huge, absolutely huge from where we are right now. But consider the robot industry. That it's kind of going along, maybe not every 4 or 5 months, but every 6 months perhaps. You're going to see a massive increase in robotics. It's not that they're going to look lifelike necessarily, but the capabilities now. Look at the manual dexterity of that hand, for instance. It's almost like a human hand, and they're increasing the joints and the movements and the rotation and et cetera, et cetera. It's really going to be stunning in another 2 years or so.
You don't have to pay it. You don't have to. You buy it, but you don't have to pay it. No overtime, no health insurance.
Yes.
No workers' comp, no vacation time, and it can work 24 hours a day.
Yep.
Or maybe it's 22 hours a day with 2 hours of charging. I don't know. But you can see from a bottom line perspective, particularly as the government penalizes businesses over and over and over with taxation and regulation, at some point you have to cut. And what does a business person do? They're looking at the bottom line. And I know they get criticized for looking at the bottom line. But if some of these businesses don't look at the bottom line, they'll be out of business. And the government, in many regards, I think is pushing more and more of this automation because the businesses see this. I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of mid-sized and small businesses would see this automation is the only way to survive because of the government taxation and regulation. True or false?
Yeah, no, that's right. We'll see it. A lot of companies will implement it incorrectly, and it could sting them. But other companies will do good things with it, and maybe they'll survive and even prosper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, I was joking about the thing taking your blood a while ago. I was joking. But while we were talking, or you were talking, I went and looked. That's the great thing about being your own producer here. We can do what we want when we want and go look for stuff. We don't have to wait a day for some producer to find it. We'll fix it in tomorrow's show. I want to play something. I go looking for it. And also makes this show a lot more interesting to me. Hopefully to you too. But otherwise, I get bored sitting here fast if we don't keep it moving. So I was thinking, can a robot really take blood? I went and looked for it. Apparently it can. Here we go. Now that looks a little human-like there because that's a human. But watch what's about to take place. Is there any audio?
The Testro introduces...
Oh, it does. Let's back it up. Oh, it's got audio. Hang on. Here we go.
Every day, millions of people have their blood drawn. For many, it's a stressful, uncomfortable, and challenging experience. Also, hospitals and labs worldwide face growing pressure from staff shortages. The Testro introduces Aletta for autonomous blood collection. Aletta is CE marked and already in European hospitals. A trained supervisor can oversee up to 3 devices. The patient inserts a cartridge with labeled blood collection tubes and confirms their identity on the interface for patient identification. The patient starts the procedure. A green light indicator guides the patient for correct arm placement. Aletta uses a combination of near-infrared and ultrasound to identify a suitable vein and will not attempt a venipuncture unless one is found. This approach allows Aletta to successfully puncture almost every patient, regardless of skin tone, body type, or challenging veins. Using Doppler ultrasound, Aletta also accurately distinguishes between veins and arteries. Once the optimal vein is identified and stabilized, the needle is inserted with sub-millimeter robotic precision. The needle is not visible for the patient, helping them feel calm and confident. The patient cannot see or feel the tubes filling and being changed, making the experience more comfortable. Once complete, Aletta removes the needle and applies a bandage. The blood draw for this patient was fast, precise, and comfortable. Aletta now automatically prepares for the next patient. Aletta brings automation, precision, and comfort together. It's redefining the standard in blood collection.
Well, I guess it does beat Nurse Ratchet. But let me tell you something. I've had a lot of blood taken several years ago now. Family member had to have surgery, and I was asked, because I had the same blood type, would you donate blood? And I had to give a lot. I'm telling you something, I would prefer a human talking me through it and taking a break in between each vial. Man, you get locked into that thing. That's a little claustrophobic. Are you not getting out? Can you not get your arm out? I don't know. I don't like that. And I like being able to talk and tell her how I'm feeling. I'm feeling a little woozy. Here's some orange juice. I'm sure you could tell the attendant that, but I just don't like the idea of being with my arm locked into something with a needle continuously in there. Whereas the other gal, she's putting in her, she's got that little thing on there and she's grabbing a new vial, stopping it, grabbing a new vial. But there's that human contact of watching what she's doing, talking, having it explained to you. I know some people wouldn't be bothered by this at all. I prefer the human touch still.
You've probably seen these pods that are being distributed in China, where it's like self-contained. A person could go in and get a physical. Mm-hmm. There's no human, but it could take a X-ray and examine your body, and you put in your symptoms and all that sort of stuff. And this would be a natural extension of that, just to take your blood while you're in there. And by the time that's done, poking you and prodding you and whatever, AI will give you a very accurate diagnosis of your problem. I am sure this is the future of healthcare in China for sure. In fact, China just established a hospital that's run by AI exclusively, with AI doctors, AI nurses, the ability to write prescriptions for you, and it's all automated with AI. And they say they want to treat 5,000 to 10,000 people a day with this hospital.
Hey, Willikers.
I know. You can see this is exactly where it's going to go, though.
Well, here's one in China, supposedly delivering medicines and stuff in the hospital. Here we go.
Walking into a hospital where the future is not just a vision, but a reality. Above your head, sleek, silent machines glide along tracks, like something out of a sci-fi movie patients and visitors barely notice, as these devices move with precision, weaving through the corridors. Their destination? Welcome to the world of smart hospitals in China. These machines are automatic medication delivery systems tirelessly working to ensure life-saving medicine and medical supplies reach their destinations with unmatched speed and accuracy, from the pharmacy to the nurse stations and even directly to patient wards. This seamless operation eliminates human error and frees up medical staff to focus on patient care, its efficiency in motion. A perfect blend of technology and compassion, and just one example of how innovation is transforming healthcare as we know it. These systems operate 24/7, tirelessly connecting different departments, ensuring no time is wasted when it matters most.
Wow. You seen that one before, Patrick?
There you go. Yeah, exactly. China has really perfected this business of healthcare, automated healthcare, and probably is going to happen anywhere in the world, but they don't have any checks or balances in China to not legal things, in other words. So they get away with a lot of stuff. People don't see it over here, and even if they do, they say, "Well, it's China. You know, whatever they do in China won't come here." I got news for you: it'll spread so fast you make your head spin.
Oh, it's all moving so very, very fast. Of course, the question is, what is it going to do to the economy, right?
Well, you're exactly right. You know, all these people, everywhere you see AI and some type of hardware being placed in, like a hospital or in a hotel, somebody's going to be displaced. Some worker is going to get a pink slip. That's just that simple. And maybe they can retrain. Maybe they can go somewhere else, get another job, possibly. But you know, this is going to be a massive disruption for the labor market, and people are going to be there'll be a lot of anxiety, for sure. It's not easy to retrain for any job. It takes time. It takes, like internship all over again, and you don't want to go through that. You know, if you're in your job and pay grade is doing good, and you get promotions, et cetera, and all of a sudden you're bounced out, you basically start at the bottom again. Mm-hmm. That's very stressful.
By the way, have you ever walked into a big box store, one of the big box lumber stores, hardware stores, and you need to find an LED light to go underneath the kitchen cabinet at home, and you can't find an employee because the store is, hello, hello, hello. Have you ever done that in one of those big stores? You can't find anybody?
All the time, yeah.
Right. Well, now all you need is a robot. You walk in the front door and you tell it, I need one of those little LED bulbs to go under my kitchen light, on my kitchen light under the counter. And the robot takes you right to the aisle. Mm-hmm. You know how I came up with that idea? Because that's what they're doing in China. That's what they're doing in China when you show up at a hospital and you're trying to find out what department do I go to. Well, I figure if it works in China for the hospital, why not for the hardware store? So I don't have to walk 3 football fields like I did the other night with the wife. 3 football fields, ended up in the back of the store in the lumber department. My wife's like, I've never been back here. I'm like, you've never been back here? It's like, no, I've never. She's never been back to that part of the store. But we had to walk all the way back to the front to finally find what we needed. If we had been met by this little creature at the front door, we could have told it what we wanted and gone right there. Because look what they're doing in China. It's a guide. Now she told them what they were looking for, where they wanted to go, what department, and now it's going to take them, and you just follow the little boy, the little guy, to your destination. There you go. You're here. There you go. I have to tell you, though, these things can come in handy. Eventually, they're going to come in handy when you have your own custom tour guide for the local big box store. Hopefully Lowe's and Home Depot will put them in real soon. I like some of the people at Lowe's. I know them personally. I know their names. They know my name. I know how many grandkids they got. I know where their grandkids live because their grandkids live in Nashville and they come down and then they get worn out because they got 11 grandkids. And I know a lot of personal stories going to Lowe's because I have a couple of employees that I interact with enough and they know my wife and they've met my granddaughters. I'm not going to get that with the robot world, but I tell you, there are times when that guy's not there. I walked in the other day and I asked for him. He wasn't supposedly there. Walked around a corner, about ran into him. Oh, he was there all right. And he gets me what I need, helps me out, and we always have a great conversation. He's a wonderful Christian man. But, aside from him, I don't always find the help I need because the store's so huge and it seems like they go less and less employees, particularly if you go in off hours, I think they're probably really busy in the morning when all the contractors are getting there. But if you go in off hours, it's a little hard. But I bet you dollar to donuts pretty soon, you're going to find yourself being greeted by a little robot, Patrick.
It will. This is going to happen for sure. And the most disturbing thing that this type of automation really gets me is with elder care, especially, where people are going to opt for a robot to take care of grandma or grandpa.
So human touch, goodbye.
Yes.
And you and I know the studies that have been done on how important the human touch is for longevity and for wellness and for getting well.
Yes.
Right? All of us have been sick like a dog when we were a child.
Yep.
And just having your mother check your temperature, put her hand on your forehead, check your temperature, your cheek, just that human touch was reassuring, right? And even as a grown adult, when I have been sick as a dog, my wife doing the same thing, that human touch is so important, right? That hand on the shoulder, rubbing your shoulder, just providing that empathy and comfort. The studies show how important that is for survival, for thriving. Now imagine older people don't have that.
I know. It's very disturbing. This is already happening in Japan, where the elder population just doesn't have people to go around. The kids aren't there, and just the way life is, I guess. China's going to be in that same boat because their population is getting older as well. And they'll have to employ these kind of robots to take care of their elder people. But this, I don't like it at all. There's a new technique now. This is an example of robot technology advancing. They've invented a skin that can be put on a robot that feels so much like human skin, even to be warm to the touch, and it can also sweat as well. And this is crazy as it sounds, but the human touch, that's what they're shooting for.
That's because they know that scientifically has benefits. Every time you say something, I just put it in a search engine and voila, we find it. Helping her get up in the morning. Oh, look at that. The robot turns into, oh my. Look at that, Logan. Isn't that something?
Speed control. Oh my gosh.
Helping her brush her teeth. Now it's going to make the bed. Get her something to drink. Oh my word. Oh.
Pills.
Seriously, it's going to run the microwave? Look at that. Oh, it's going to feed her?
Yeah.
Isn't that something?
Did we say that China is so far ahead of everybody else in Japan?
No, it's going to play
a
game with her. You see that, Patrick? It was going to play some checkers or something.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, she's fallen and can't get up. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I hate to miss out on that.
Here. Yeah.
Man. Can you imagine if the Lord doesn't return, if you have a generation that's raised with these things, you won't go anywhere without your personal robot assistant.
Yeah.
All right. What were you going to say, Patrick?
That's it. You know, Japan and China are so advanced with this. We don't see this in our country at all, but it's going to come here. You know it is.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, this it is amazing what they can do and what they're doing. This robot, for instance, the one that showed there, it had no dexterity in its hands like they have now. And you have fingers that are moving just like this, like my fingers are moving right now. You know, this level of dexterity, you know, opposable thumbs like that, you know, incredible.
Incredible times. Oh, wow. Yeah. All right. Technocracy.news. Technocracy.news. We cover a lot of ground when Patrick's with us.
Oh,
and
yes.
He's got a brand new book. Of course, he has The Final Betrayal that he wrote with Courtenay Turner, who's about to be our guest. And he has a brand new one out. I know because I've already given a little blurb for it. And it's called You'll Own Nothing, right?
It is. That's the subtitle of the book. It's called The New Economics of Technocracy. You Will Own Nothing. And, you know, this is kind of a major treatise for me on the economics of technocracy. I haven't written about this exactly at this point, but this book really needs to be out and be studied all across academia and whatever.
And when does it come out?
To see what's going on. Well, it's out right now, actually. I just got the nod this morning from Amazon. It's already on the store there. And it's on my website. I put it up just a few hours ago on my website.
Excellent. So it's available, folks, at technocracy.news, technocracy.news. Check it out. Thank you, as always, Patrick, for all you do.
You bet. See you later.
Guys, do you appreciate what we're doing here? The information we're bringing you, keeping it cutting edge, moving, also somewhat entertaining at the same time. I think television, even great programs like this, need to also be entertaining and at times funny, to have a little bit of an outlet with all the serious stuff going on in the world. So if you appreciate the well-rounded programming we bring you here, we have our church service on Sunday night. We try to be extremely well-rounded in the programming that we offer. Yep, we're going to have to do another house-to-house real soon. Boy, we are so busy. Melissa's so busy with customer support, donor relations. We're all so busy, but we do want to do another house-to-house real soon. If you appreciate the quality of the reporting and news and information, we need your support. I'm going to say it again. We've been making a big push for people that can give $10 a month or even $20 a month. We did indeed receive communication from several people over the last few years saying, I love what you're doing and I would love to contribute, but all I could contribute would be about $10 a month. And I've decided that $10 a month won't really make much of a difference to your organization. So I decided it was just a waste of my time and yours. Rungo, most of our donors are small dollar donors. If 1,000 of you give $10 a month, that's $10,000. That's a lot of money. That adds up. We got to bring in about 40,000 plus a month just to cover our bills, our operational expense. So imagine if 1,000 of you gave $10 or 1,000 a month gave $20. So see, folks, it adds up real fast. So I'm on a big push this year, 2026, to get a lot of you that have been sitting on the sidelines who can afford $10 a month or $20 a month to do so. Would you please? Now, you're busy. You don't have time to think about sitting down and writing a check and sending a check for $10, $20 every month. You're too busy for that. Would you consider setting up an automatic contribution with your credit card or PayPal? You can do that at worldviewfoundation.com. Worldviewfoundation.com. We are seeing an increase in the number of people that are setting up automatic $10 and $20 a month contributions. So I'm going to stay on this campaign because obviously it's working. There are many of you out there that have not been giving because you thought, well, what's $10 a month? What's $20 a month toward a $40,000 plus budget he's got to meet? It's not going to do anything. Not worth it. Again, wrong, because you see very quickly how the math adds up. And I am seeing people indeed doing it, signing up, $10 a month, $20 a month. And our system says you have a new donor at $10 a month. You have a new donor at $20 a month. So it's working. It is working. Clearly, we were right. There are a lot of you sitting out there who can't afford to do 10, 20 a month, but we're not because you didn't think it was important. I'm here to tell you it's extremely important. And it really, really does add up fast. So 2026 is our year to see a lot more people doing just a little bit. $10 a month, $20 a month at worldviewfoundation.com. Now, if you prefer to send a check, you can do that. Worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. But again, easiest thing for you is probably to set up an automatic contribution. If you prefer to make the contribution over the phone, Melissa will be happy to talk to you each and every month. You can do that by using that same phone number on the screen, 901-825-0652, 901-825-0652. Help us continue to push out Christian worldview programming to help people understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview. Thank you for doing that. And don't forget, we keep pushing out more and more for free, including our national conference coming up Friday night, October 23rd, Saturday, October 24th, absolutely free. Our first time to make our national conference free. We've got a great lineup, Friday night, the 23rd of October, Saturday, the 24th, in Waukesha, Wisconsin, at the Waukesha Expo Center. It is free, but you must have a ticket, and you can acquire one and print it off online. Reserve your seat at worldviewtube.com/events. worldviewtube.com/events. And it's free, brought to you by our foundation. We'll be right back with Courtenay Turner after this short break. Go to worldviewtalk.com. Get your satellite phone like I have, because you know what? China is in on our power grid. That is a matter of proven fact. If you want to have communications with your loved ones, your family, your children, maybe your spouse travels, maybe you have a child away at college, you want communication should the grid go down. That's why you need a satellite phone, worldviewtalk.com. But look what else they have. They also have solar generators. I have one of their solar generators. I have the Delta Echo 400, a solar generator. So I can, of course, charge my satellite phone. I can run my coffee pot. I can run my whole house if I want to. All the details are there at worldviewtalk.com, or use that number, 1-866-738-3224. They have very friendly operators that will explain to you their products, but you can explain to them what it is you're desiring to acquire. How much electricity are you wanting to generate with this solar generator? Well, they'll tell you what size you need. worldviewtalk.com or 1-866-738-3224. Join me now is the co-author of The Final Betrayal, Patrick Wood's co-author, Courtenay Turner. Courtenay, were you watching some of that with Patrick and I and all those robots taking your blood and taking care of grandma and guiding you to the hospital? It is moving quickly, is it not?
It is. It's crazy. I was just talking to a friend of mine from LA who I haven't spoken to in a very long time. And he's known as like Aaron Sorkin's protege, and he had a lawsuit with CAA who ended his career. All this to say, though, that he was talking about a mutual friend of ours who has designed an app for screenwriting. So it's an AI screenwriting tool. And I essentially said to him, well, you know, that's where everything's going. So you may as well get in on it and, you know, profit off of it, because I don't know how many people are going to have a career as a screenwriter human. So,
because the AI is going to write the script.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but the guy I was talking to and his friend, who is also a mutual friend of mine, they're both screenwriters. And so the other guy is, the one guy is finally getting back into work because his career was canceled by CAA. And they had a whole lawsuit they just settled, and it was public. So he's like, I can start to go back out there again, because after 7 years, they finally settled the lawsuit. But he's also a speechwriter, so there were a lot of political things involved. But yeah, our friend is at the moment creating an app that's designed for AI to write your script.
Well, and it will probably do a very good job at it, you know, no doubt about it. Let's talk about Alexander Dugin. Over the weekend, I saw he put out this quote. This tweet, Alexander Dugin, who's often known as Putin's brain. We've talked a lot about him the last several weeks. He says, when you see the black flags coming from the direction of Khorasan, Go to them, even if you have to crawl over snow, ice, or among them is the Caliphate of Allah, the Mahdi. Now he's quoting, I guess, some book. That's what it sounds like. The Mahdi, that would be the 12th Imam that comes through lots of chaos in their eschatology, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
here he is, Putin's brain, pushing the success of Islam. Clearly, they are doing that. Putin and his team, they're weaponizing Islam against the West, as we've been saying for years here. And Putin has an awful lot of apologists. Oh, he's a Christian. He's a lion of Christianity, don't you know, Putin? He's against gay marriage and all that queer LGBTQ queer stuff. Okay, yes. But that doesn't make him a lion of Christianity, right?
No. And I think we've seen so much like this really building over the past several years. I've talked a lot about the intellectual dark web. And I personally do think that that was an operation, and it was designed, if you go even today, you look at the intellectual dark web and they talk about how they were all far right. Now, I would argue none of them were conservatives. I mean, the only one who may even be on the right at all might be Ben Shapiro, but I mean, none of them are conservatives. And even now, when you look at the IDW on Wikipedia, that's what it says, that these are far right thinkers and thought leaders. But really what it did was shift the Overton window, because it was all about the woke movement. And it created this dialectic between woke, anti-woke. And you had these people who really were not conservative, but they just believed that a man's a man, a woman's a woman. So why am I bringing this up in relation to Dugin? Because I think it's the same shift that we're seeing, where people who argue that they're socially conservative, somehow that gets interpreted as they're Christian or they're pro-American and they're conservative. There's a lot more to our founding principles than just being anti what they call woke, which is really just Marxist intersectionality, right? It's just a rebrand of that philosophy, which they named woke. And I do think that the purpose of that was to create this dialectic, which is the same thing that they're doing now with the whole, the socially conservative reaction you have. And they're actually, they call themselves you've got all these different factions, like the America Firsters. I actually just watched, it's from 2020, but I just watched the Plot Against America. It was a fictional HBO series. And I mean, yes, it's HBO and it's fiction. It's, I'm sure there's propaganda in there, but it's very interesting. But because they call themselves America Firsters, and so that's what the Groypers call themselves. That's what these new right kind of Nazi movement calls themselves. But in order to understand, the foundations of America and how this is diametrically opposed, they're arguing that because they're anti-woke or because they're socially conservative, that somehow this is Christian, but it is very much anti-American. And they are partnering with the Islams because it is a red-green alliance, right? So they're not aligned. And this is what I talked about, last time I was telling you about the Project Russia book that I'm in the process of going through right now. I've actually gotten them and I'm translating them. So it's been very, very interesting. But they're, of course, not aligned with Islam because they want a world theocracy that is Eastern Orthodox Russian, right? They want the monk princes. However, they're both aligned in that they have a common enemy, which is us. They want to take down the West, and the United States is the primary target. And so they will align with another autocratic, vision that wants to take down the West, even though, it's not because they want the interests of the Muslims. It's because they want to take us out of the picture.
Let's talk about some of these people by name. Jack Posobiec. I've been very critical of him the last few years. He just seems like a really odd character. And now he's on this whole thing over the Holy Sepulchre Church. And it turns out that was a miscommunication. They were trying to protect Cardinal Pizzaballa there, the Cardinal to Jerusalem. And a lot of these guys went online acting like somehow, the Israeli government was out to persecute, quote, Christians. It turns out it was just a miscommunication. Rockets have been fired in there. Shrapnel's landing everywhere. I mean, apparently Netanyahu stepped in as quickly as he found out about it. There was no agenda at all, from what I can see. to somehow have the Jews, the Israelis, persecuting Christians. But this thing blew up into a big brouhaha fast by a lot of these social media people. Wasn't Jack Posobiec kind of on the fanning the flame side of this?
He was, and Jack Posobiec is very much part of this. I don't know what to call them, the America Firster New Right, where they're socially conservative. They're very much arguing for, and by socially conservative, it's just they're saying they want to fight against what they, like the ESG policies, and they're pro-white, and they openly say that. It's like they're ethno-nationalist, which isn't really American, I have to point out. But they're, they believe a man is a man, a woman is a woman. Okay, we can agree on this. But then they go into almost like a fascist Nazi kind of ideology, and which is fundamentally anti-American. But he's tied into that whole group, right? With Steve Bannon, which is also naval intelligence kind of connections. I have to point that out. I mean, I can't say that there's direct strings or anything, but it's an interesting thing to point out. And they're also very connected to that whole tech bro movement. So I think because they have mutual interests.
Well, speaking of that, here we go. Here's a headline. Bannon, we need to get out of this situation where Christians are supplicants to Israel's government over the most sacred sites in Christendom. This is absurd. Does Netanyahu decide if the Catholic Church can have mass? I mean, again, this seemed to be absolutely blown out of proportion over the weekend, and I just watched it turn into a huge, huge story. Now, I don't know the validity of this. Have you seen this? This is just out today. Someone's saying, whoa, Jack Posobiec, was he pushing this book? Putin has all... Yeah,
he was. I don't know if it's still on his page,
the book by
but I
Alexander
did see
Dugin? He was pushing it?
He was pushing it. I don't know if it's still on his page, but it was on his page. Yeah, and he was promoting it. I haven't seen him talk about it, but I saw it on his Twitter feed. So, yeah, I mean, it looks like an endorsement, but it would be very much aligned with that whole circle, right? I feel like you can kind of, I don't want to make it guilt by association, but they're all saying the same thing. They're all parroting the same kind of narratives. And the fact that they took what happened in Israel as an excuse to blow that out of proportion and decide that means that somehow Israel was against Christians, which is so absurd. I mean, most people who are making these kind of claims have actually never been to Israel. It's very evident. But it's a great way to get all of these people who claim to be Christians, who, in that America First movement or whatever, New Right movement, I don't know what you want to call them, but a lot of these people are claiming that under Christianity, they're against the Jews, that somehow like Judeo-Christian is a false statement, that Jews are fake, that there's a whole movement to just negate Judaism altogether. I recently heard all sorts of theories about like the Old Testament didn't even exist, and it was like superimposed, that they stole it from Zoroastrianism. I mean, there are theories all over the place, but all of them seem to have one thing in common, that they just want to negate the Bible. And these Christians who think that they're justified in undermining the Jews and attacking the Jews, if they think that they're not going to come after them afterwards, I think that's very naive. I mean, I think it's just to completely eradicate the Bible altogether. I think that's the purpose.
So what do you think so ultimately their goal is what? This infiltration of MAGA what is their goal? Are these people involved in, you think, some kind of psychological warfare against Christians and conservatives and Jews? Is it to set up the real conservatives and Christians and Jews? And what is their agenda? Are they into what? Communitarianism, big government, big business merging together? Do they agree with the idea of Alexander Dugin's multipolarity, which means regional government and a supra authority that oversees it all? Do we know enough about what they really believe? Or are they just useful idiots that are shoved out there and elevated on social media, and they're not even smart enough? They're basically dumb drones that are sent out to do the job. They're basically the propagandist for people much, much higher up. Because some of these guys don't seem real bright, if I can speak just directly from my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. And I tend to share that opinion. I think that the way I describe propagandists, the best propagandists are the ones who believe what they're selling. If you're a used car salesman and you think the car you're selling is a piece of garbage, you're not going to sell it very well, unless you're just a really good liar. And even then, I mean, people are only so good at lying, right? But if you really believe that, yes, it's a used car, but this is a fantastic deal and it's been souped up and you're getting the best you can possibly get at this price, if you really believe that and you're selling it, you're going to do a much better job of selling it. So historically, the best propagandists and the people who have been selected as propagandists have been those that actually believe what they're selling. So I do think a lot of these people are useful idiots for, a much bigger agenda. When I went through, I think we talked about this a little bit last time when I've been going through this Project Russia book, that's explicitly what they say in their own words, and now I'm translating it directly from their words. They're saying that they don't need to create enemies of the West. They don't need to create these propaganda figures. They just need to elevate the ones who are already parroting, things that work for them, things that are destructive to America and to the West. And a lot of these people, they're parroting, and they're not all the same. I'm not trying to say that these ideas are a monolith, but whether it's the Jews crowd, or whether it's the pro-multipolarity, or it's the anti-war, and I'm not saying I'm pro-war. It's always a dialectics. Like if you're not anti-war, you're pro-war. There's shades of gray in these things. But these various groups and factions, they have something in common, which is that they're very subversive, right? Multipolarity does not serve the United States of America. It does not serve the West in any regard. This is a UN propagated kind of a narrative that serves globalism. Ultimately, it's not even about propping up the West. It's about creating a one world order, right? That's what it's about. The attacking any religion is not beneficial. It creates division. It creates tension.
But that's what Dugan said to do. We have the quote by Dugan saying the best thing we can do is to create internal conflicts in America or in a country, and highlight the racist and the extremist and create chaos. That's what he calls for in his own book.
I know. Right? And that's why I really think he's the executor of this Project Russia plan. So the third book in Project Russia is called The Path for Russia. And they talk about how these books are anonymous. The author of the first book, one of the authors, has now been revealed, but the rest of them are completely anonymous, and they have remained so. This was, the book started in 2005, but they say that that's part of their strategies because they don't want anybody to know, so that it can be just about the ideas, and so you can then attack anybody specifically. You can't point the finger. But in these books, they do say that they want to create this division. They want to create the chaos. They want to create warring factions and tensions. And they also want to create the anti-American sentiment. So, like when I brought up the libertarian ethos or the anti-war people, a lot of them are so anti-government that, and I'm not saying our government doesn't have corruption, newsflash, it was created by humans, we're flawed, there's going to be corruption and there's going to be flaws. It's certainly not perfect, but this idea that, America 1.0 is dead and that, the whole system is so corrupt that it could never be repaired, they want to amplify those voices because those voices are useful to destroy America from within without firing a shot.
Yeah, well, guys should go do your own homework on Jack Posobiec. Charlie Kirk's death is tragic, but to think that guys like Benny Johnson and Jack Posobiec are rising to the top, I mean, in my opinion, I think you might as well just flush your money down the toilet before you support Turning Point USA, as long as they're aligned with people like Jack Posobiec and Benny Johnson and some of these characters. Would you agree?
I would absolutely agree. So Benny Johnson was part of that whole Tenet media scandal. So this is, when I'm pulling at these kind of threads of Russian active measures and psychological warfare, a lot of it we can see based on the narratives and who it serves, like who benefits. But that scandal was actual direct funding that we can trace.
What scandal is that? I'm not aware of that.
So this is Tenet Media. So Tenet Media was the outpost was actually here in Tennessee, and there were several quote unquote conservative media influencers. Benny Johnson was one of them. Others were people like Tim Pool, Lawrence Southern.
You and I have talked about this before. Yeah. They got Russian money, right?
And they were getting something like $150,000 for, a one episode that might be 40 minutes or so. And, their response is that, because I think I've talked to you about this as well, but they, the whole MICE framework, the MICE to rascals. MICE is money, ideology, coercion, compliance, and ego. And this is a perfect example. And that's used to recruit agents, assets. And you can find that on the CIA.gov. But a lot of them responded, oh, we had no idea where the money was coming from. We just thought, you didn't think when they were offering that kind of money for one episode, you didn't stop to say, gee, where's this money coming from? What might the agenda be? No, they just thought they were so wonderful. Of course, my voice is worth, $100,000 for, a single episode. Yeah. So we have direct evidence that, they were being propagated as a Russian disinfo agent. They're essentially being elevated by and funded by Russia. Yeah, there you have it.
$10 million.
Yeah. So, that's a direct funding trail. So Benny Johnson, and then now he's propping up Jack Posobiec, who is, I think would, and you brought up Turning Point. So my next article I'm in the middle of is actually tying McChrystal's Teams of Teams to Flynn and the whole defeat disinfo, which was...
Are you talking Stanley McChrystal?
Stanley McChrystal.
Remind our audience who he is.
Okay, so he was a general he wrote the book Teams of Teams, which is all about the human terrain systems. And so the reason why this is very relevant is because it's very reminiscent. It was about counterinsurgency. So they were using like anthropologists and linguists, cultural linguistics to win the hearts and minds of the people. And this is very reminiscent of Operation Phoenix, right, in Vietnam, which was also that program was terminated for this reason, because they found it to be unethical. And so was Teams of the Human Terrain Systems was actually canceled in 2014. It's also another one people can look up is Jade Helm, which also was amplified by Russia. So this was they're all very similar in that they're infiltrating into the culture. And people can look at his book, Teams of Teams would be, kind of outlines this entire blueprint, which was canceled because the Anthropological Association deemed it to be unethical. And what I have mapped out is that the reason why it's relevant to Turning Point is I can't prove that they're using it, but Erica Kirk's mom runs a company that's called E3 Tech, and what they specialize in is actually human terrain systems and cultural linguistics. And Turning Point seems like it would be a perfect vehicle to do community planning using that military strategy, but bringing it home domestically, as well as the technology, right? We have the technology of the geofencing and targeting. You can use that technology in combination with this military strategy that could be a way to do various kinds of community mapping and like geographical type of mapping and planning. So I'm in the middle of working on that. Hopefully I'll have that done by the end of the week. But I also tied it to Stanley McChrystal was working on Defeat Disinfo, which was back in 2020. And it was actually a little campaign against Trump using AI and social media to work against Trump in 2020. And this is also tied, the other part that I brought into this is there's something called the Trust Foundation. And the Trust Foundation is mostly like JSOC members. It's a lot of military.
Explain what that is, JSOC.
Joint Chiefs of Staff. Joint Chiefs of Special Operations is what it is. Sorry. Joint Chiefs Special Operations. So they're working on this. It's called the Trust Foundation. And what they originally started it supposedly to build trust in journalism, but now they've extended it to every institution. And Stanley McChrystal is one of the co-founders of this. And so I imagine they're using, the language on the website describes essentially what human terrain systems is. So it sounds like this is being deployed now.
So explain it in layman terms. What do you think their objective is in layman terms?
I think their objective is to infiltrate our culture and subvert our culture. I don't see this as a pro-American kind of an operation. It feels very much like a counter-state operation.
So it's basically the military-industrial complex penetrating the culture?
Yeah, I guess that would be a really simple way to put it. Yeah.
So that the military and big business are really the ones running the country, and then they get the American people to go along with the outcome. So it's
because the military-industrial complex is also behind big tech, right?
Well, that's right. And we just played a clip with Patrick and I want to play it again for you because you're making the point here. I want you to further that point. But just to bring everybody current, this is what President Trump just said, I think, yesterday on Air Force One.
Now the military is building
Who's building it, folks?
Now the military is building a big complex under the ballroom, which has come out recently because of a stupid lawsuit that was filed. But the military is building a massive complex under the ballroom, and that's under construction, and we're doing very well. So we're ahead of schedule. That's part of it. The ballroom essentially becomes a shed for what's being built under the military, including from drones and including from any other thing. The glass on the windows, you see the big windows, the glass is extremely thick. It's high-grade bulletproof glass, so all of the windows are bulletproof.
Okay, so the military, it looks like they're building a massive data center. The military is
I was going to say, I think I've talked to you about this, and I made the joke, and I said that this must be why he thought it was so important, to get the gays out of the military, because nothing straight men love more than decorating a ballroom.
So the military is basically running, their goal is to run the government, the intelligence community, the CIA, the military, NSA, they all kind of merge together, right? I remember a few years ago at one of my Worldview weekends in the Ozarks, a former NSA employee who was an NSA employee at the time and was counting down the days to retire, had been attending our conference for several years. Yeah. Said to me, when I said, I believe that the federal government, the NSA, CIA, I believe the intelligence community was involved in stealing the 2020 election. I believe that was largely the intelligence community that did that. And I went into several reasons why I believe that to be the case. This person who worked at the NSA came up to me and said, what you're saying about the election being stolen by the intelligence community, you are over the target. Keep saying it. And I said, really? Tell me more. No, I don't want to go to prison. But what I'm telling you is you are over the target. Keep saying it. That was an NSA employee who's now since retired. So I believe whether you go back to Operation Northwoods, right? With John F. Kennedy, where the generals walked in and said, we can carry out terrorist attacks in southern Florida and blame it on the Cubans to get the Americans to have the stomach to invade Cuba, right? Operation Northwoods, isn't that what that was called? I think it was off the top of my head. Look it up.
Yes, I think it was Northwoods.
Operation Northwoods, right, guys? You got all, and of course, Kennedy was like, get out of my Oval Office. When you look at them killing Kennedy, which I think they did, don't you really think they can get away with killing the president in broad daylight and not still be running the government? So what I hear you saying, in your opinion, is that we have a lot of these guys that are military and former military that are moving in this world, but you believe they're actually still working with the military and intelligence arena in some capacity to use these social media platforms and podcasts and shows to push the American people toward the desired predetermined outcome, correct? It's really the Delphi technique. Facilitators, all these podcast people, I think it was the Rand Corporation that did the Delphi technique. And what they would do is, and I've been talking about this since the 90s.
I read an article, the Oracle, the Delphi, or the algorithmic Oracle, sorry, yeah.
They would get, what they would do is they would get people into a room, and it usually had to do with planning commissions, I think, and what they want to do with land. And then the idea was to get a facilitator, and you start out for a bunch of little groups. You start out in a room, a general assembly room with all kinds of people. And I've been in school board meetings where this happened in the early 90s. And then they say, we're going to break up into smaller groups, and you're going to have a facilitator, and we want to know what you think the education program for our school district should be. What should kids know and be able to do? We want your input, your ownership as parents and taxpayers. What should children know and be able to do? And they do a little formal ceremony in the general meeting in the gymnasium or in the theater. And several hundred people are in there. And then the superintendent breaks everybody up to go to their little room where they have a facilitator. And so I went into the little room. There's about 10 of us in there. There's a little whiteboard and a facilitator. And they began to say, what do you think every child should know and be able to do? And they're writing it down and blah, blah, blah. And then supposedly they're going to take everybody's input and put it into one plan as a school district. And this is going on all over the state. And then they submit it to the State Department of Education. They take everybody's input, put it into one state plan, and send it to the Department of Education of what we think children should know and be able to do, what they should master. And isn't it interesting that almost down to a state, all 50 states just happen to have the same desired outcomes? Productive group participant, positive health habits, critical thinker. You know, really, how is it that all of these school districts around America all ended up having the same objectives? That's because what you went through, folks, was a dog and pony show. They erased the whiteboard and went home. They never turned squat over to the Department of Education in your state. And if they did, it was some carbon copy program they already had. They mailed it in because the states all knew what their plan better look like if they want any federal funding, because the federal government said, your plan better look pretty much like this if you want the money. So they made sure they did it. But they had to put the parents at the school district level all over the whole state through a dog and pony show with facilitators to direct everybody to feeling like they had input and ownership. The whole thing had already been predetermined. That's the Delphi technique. True or false?
Yeah, well, and it's predicated on sensitivity training, right? Kurt Lewin, the sensitivity training, which later became group dynamics. Kurt Lewin worked with the National Laboratories, which was also part of the National Education Association. They worked together. But essentially, the idea of sensitivity training is brainwashing, and it is what became the group dynamics, which were these trauma bonding groups, right, that Tavistock did, and then they popularized through the entire corporate culture of America and all over the world, essentially. But even the CIA in their 1974 document said that sensitivity training essentially was brainwashing. They said that they would really like to test the efficacy of sensitivity training, but that they couldn't, it was too reminiscent of the brainwashing in China. They didn't say Maoist struggle sessions, but I think that's what they were alluding to. And they can't brainwash their military, at least not overtly anyway. So they
what
said
you're
that
saying
they
then is
do it.
that same Delphi technique that I just described with school districts,
yeah,
it is basically putting out bots, if you will, in this case, humans, real humans with real personalities, real people.
But on social media, they're doing it with bots. That was my whole premise in the algorithmic.
But they are doing it with bots as well. But they also do it with real humans who can show up at conferences, meet people, do videos, go do interviews as a guest on a podcast, have their own podcast, and then make it appear as though there's a huge group consensus behind this, right?
Yes.
And that this is part of that Delphi technique, getting these basically facilitators, but now instead of calling them facilitators, we call them influencers.
Yes.
So now your influencers are really your facilitators, and it turns out that some of them maybe be funded by non-government organizations, think tanks, nonprofits, who are getting money funneled through
Russian oligarchs,
money funneled through USAID, CIA money funneling here and there and all over the place to fund these people who then go push this narrative, which looks like oh, wow, if I want to be America first, I have to be an anti-Semite. I have to be for the idea of multipolarity. I have to be the idea for dividing the world into regions and a super authority and a Technate and grabbing Canada and Mexico. And so they push this narrative that this is now America first. Whereas 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when we were talking about this, particularly during the 2005 period of George W. Bush, a North American Union, what is that now? 2005. That's now 21 years ago. Is that right?
Yeah.
Do the math. 2026
2026, yeah.
Yeah, so 21 years.
21 years ago, yeah.
21 years ago, we were exposing that idea, and we were called conspiracy theorists. Now the idea is being promoted by the Secretary of War, as we saw under Pete Hegseth when I just interviewed Patrick. So look at how this has happened. We've now taken what we said 21 years ago with Phyllis Schlafly, the late Phyllis Schlafly, and others who we were interviewing, and we were exposing this, and we were called conspiracy theorists and nut jobs. Now, the facilitators, who are now called influencers, are out there pushing this entire agenda, which is packaged as America first, patriotism, anti-woke, anti-leftist. And what it really is globalism, communitarianism, big government, big business being packaged as nationalism.
Public-private partnerships, yeah.
Am I accurate or not? You want to correct me?
I think you're absolutely accurate. The only thing I would like to just add some nuance to is, like, I wouldn't say that it's the military that's, I think that there is nuance there. I don't think the entire military is like trying to subvert America or has bought into necessarily all of these narratives. I think it's mixed. I do think that there are foreign influences, I'm not privy to classified documents, so I don't have the hard receipts to show on this, but I do think that based on things like what we're seeing with Stanley McChrystal, for instance, I think that there probably are some foreign influences that have infiltrated into the military-industrial complex, into our technological infrastructure, into this media sphere. Tenet Media is just one example. I certainly don't think they're the only one. There's something called the Serena Shim Award, which is they give. It's basically a pay-to-play type of influencer operation, and a lot of them. The common thread is they promote this multipolarity. They're very anti, they're anti-Semitic. There's a lot of commonalities in the narratives that they're espousing. They claim to be anti-war, but they're really extreme isolationists, which is not a productive, I think, strategy.
And again, I'm not saying the whole military is involved, but the upper echelon of the military and the intelligence community is.
They're involved, definitely.
100%.
I'm not saying all of them. I don't want to say it's like,
But you're talking about the leadership, most of the big dogs. They know what's going on. That's how they got where they are. It's a club.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, they do. All of our major technological infrastructure really comes from the military. I have
former generals who told me that I've one on video or audio who was a one-star general who said he couldn't look himself in the mirror anymore and put his uniform on. It had become a political class.
Right. Well, unfortunately, while there's some truth possibly there, then that's what lends credibility to people like Joe Kent, right? They come out and be like, oh, I can't do this because the military has corrupted me and they're doing these things I can't support. But that becomes, in my opinion, it becomes like a psychological warfare operation. It becomes political warfare, possibly an active measure. I mean, I don't know, but it doesn't serve America.
Well,
right?
Listen to what Wesley Clark, remember this video by Wesley Clark? Tell me how you think this fits into this, what we're talking about. Remember this? Here we go.
About 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the Joint Staff who used to work for me. And one of the generals called me and he said, "Sir, you got to come in. You got to come in and talk to me a second." I said, "Well, you're too busy." He said, No. He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq. This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, we're going to war with Iraq. Why? He said, I don't know. He said, I guess they don't know what else to do. So I said, well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al-Qaeda? He said, no. He says, there's nothing new that way. They just made the decision to go to war with Iraq. He said, I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we've got a good military and we can take down governments. And he said, I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail. So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, are we still going to war with Iraq? And he said, oh, it's worse than that. He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, and he said, I just got this down from upstairs, meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, this is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran.
That's what we call, that's nation building, okay? That's nation building, right? And of course, a lot of this has to do with trade routes and trade routes and resources and minerals.
Just like what's going on now.
Hello. So anything you want to add to that?
I just have to point out, he keeps saying, so are we still going to war with Iraq? We just went into Afghanistan. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense when you follow a lot of these narratives. And, you know, I have pointed out what's going on with IMEC and the Strait of Hormuz. And I still have people coming back to me saying, oh, so it's all about Israel. Like, did you not just read anything I just said? How is this about Israel? I don't, like, you're literally just parroting these narratives that you've heard, and somehow, like, you feel like that makes sense, but you're literally not following any logic. It's really, but that, I think that's how these influence operations work, right? People just hear something, and then if they hear it enough times, then it kind of starts to, I guess you hear a lie enough times, then it becomes true. I don't know.
Well, and we played the video. I think we played the video where the Secretary of Defense, we did play the video. I just want to play it for you real quick again. Okay. Listen to this, because this is what he said yesterday, Sunday.
Why? Because every sovereign nation and territory north of the equator, from Greenland to Ecuador and from Alaska to Guyana, is not part of the global south. It is our security perimeter in this great neighborhood that we all live in. Each one of these countries border either the North Atlantic or the North Pacific. Each one of these countries sits north of the 2 basic geographic barriers that exist in this region, the Amazon and the Andes Mountains. This is basic geography that we don't teach in schools as much as we should. And it restores our north-south relations, and we must get it right. In the north, the United States must enhance posture and presence in cooperation with you and our sovereign partners to defend our shared immediate security perimeter. In the south, meaning south of the equator, the other side of this great neighborhood, we will strengthen partnerships through increased burden sharing. This will enable you to take a greater role to defend the South Atlantic and the South Pacific, and to secure critical infrastructure and resources in partnership with us and other Western nations. This is what we did in World War II, just like we sunk ships with torpedoes in World War II. At the Department of War, we called it the quarter sphere defense. And we will do this again. If we're serious about our...
Okay, I want to go to the spot where he called it North American Union, though. Where's that?
We call this strategic map the Greater North America.
The Greater North America. There you go. Well, there you go. There's the book.
The map of the Technate. This is literally the map. This is the Technocracy study course, and this is literally the map of the Technate, and that is what he's talking about. And I have to point out, I can't stand they use these UN terms. Like, Trump is always saying democracy. It bothers me every time he says it. And here we have Pete Hegseth saying global south. Global south is a UN term, and that this is part of that whole multipolarity kind of a narrative. So I don't know. But they use these terms, and I don't think they're accidental.
No, they're not accidental. And the reason I played that again is just to make sure you saw it, because what we were saying 21 years ago was mocked. Now it's being promoted by the Secretary of war or of defense, and they're going to do it. And what you have now are the facilitators, who we call influencers, who I don't know where they get their funding. You start looking at some of their finances and you're shocked at where they're getting their funding, right? I mean, I'm reading reports of some of these guys that are supposedly multimillionaires giving money to this guy, this former general, that former general. I'm like, where are these guys getting their money? But they're all pushing a narrative that makes me wonder, again, if we aren't being played. And even some of the people we've interviewed in the past and promoted and complimented, they turned out not to be full facing. They were not revealing perhaps who they really were, what they were really doing, what their real objective was. That's what I'm starting to question with some of these characters. How about you?
I feel the same way. The AWOL Nation song, Kill Your Heroes, comes to mind quite often. But I think some of them are useful idiots. I don't think they're all witting operatives. But I think sometimes, I use my analogy of the harness when you're climbing a scaffold for controlled opposition. So, when you're at the bottom, it's like you can unclip, you can walk away, you can go up and down a few steps, and you have a lot of leeway. When you get halfway up a very tall skyscraper, you may not know who's pulling on those on the harness, but you feel that it got very tight. You might still be able to go up one step, but you're not going very far. You get to the top of that building, you're not going anywhere. I mean, you're locked in. Those ropes are super tight. And I think that's kind of how a lot of this works. People start to grow somewhat of an audience. There's the flattery, there's the money, and they don't necessarily know where that's coming from, and they may not really want to know. But I think that as they, and this is true for any person, organization, entity, I think this happens often. As they grow, you start to become a little bit more aware, but you might not want to ask too many questions because you don't want to kill the golden goose, you don't want to kill the cash cow. But then when you get to a certain place, I think it becomes kind of hard not to know. So people either willfully turn a blind eye, or they know, and it's more important to them to keep going the course because they want the money, the fame, whatever, the validation, whatever it might be. So that Meister Rascals framework becomes very relevant. But I think that what we have to look at is the narratives that are being promulgated and how similar they are. And then you start to see the circles, right? You brought up Posobiec. Posobiec and Bannon work together. And Bannon is a traditionalist, just like Dugin. Right. So Dugin.
And by the way, when you say traditionalist, you don't mean like
capital T.
You don't mean mommy and daddy's traditional values. You mean
no. I mean disciples of Julius Evola, who is an occultist and who believes in the theories of like the Kali Yuga, that we're reaching an apocalyptic state, and so they're talking about how we have to return to a traditional time. But yeah, they're not talking about traditional value. This is an esoteric philosophy worldview, and both of them are traditionalists. So Bannon, I believe it was in Rome where he sang the praises of Julius Evola as a kind of intellectual mentor. And this is the same figure that's inspiring Alexander Dugin. So there's commonality there. You start to see there are certain people who are parroting the same narratives who also have mutual collaborations. And I don't think that's coincidental.
Yeah. Well, do you really think people like Jack Posobiec, are really that bright? I don't know. You guys have to decide for yourself. Here's an interesting video. Watch this.
Hello. Angry GOT fan here today. Participate in what I'd like to call the Fire and Ice Bucket Challenge. I have instructed my army of anger to fill a bucket full of wildfire and then throw it upon me in the cause of course, charity. So, with that, I say, 1, 2, 3. No,
that really is Jack Posobiec, right, guys?
Wow.
I guess he's made some of these videos out here. I mean, guys, here's another. Oh, he sings, does he? All right, here we go. Oh, brother John. Are you about to throw up, Turner?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I have met him, and he was.
You have met him, have you?
I have met him, and he was. He struck me as quite. They're very impressed with himself. So,
Okay. So you don't have to judge on the videos. You can judge based on your own interaction with him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, there you go. These are the guys who are going to save America. Everybody, apparently, right?
Apparently, they're going to save America.
And Steve Bannon loves this guy, doesn't he?
He does love this guy. And I don't know if that's the naval intelligence connection or what it is. But yeah, he does seem to be very impressed with him. I'm not impressed with the narratives. I think they're very destructive. Their American First label does not seem reflective of what's actually America First.
So the bottom line here is, we're trying to do here is to warn people that the folks you think are popular, that have big followings, some of this may be people who have been propped up, pushed up, where you see other people that are warning about the globalism and the technates and the transhumanism and the technocracy. They can't seem to get any traction, and they lose people, and then they add 5 people, and then they lose 10 people, then they add 10 people, and they lose 30 people, and you can never get any traction. But the people doing all this other stuff just go to over 1 million, boom, like that. That to me is very suspicious. Am I wrong to be suspicious?
I think it's incredibly suspicious. They go from 0 to 60. I mean, this Professor Zhang, who's now claiming he's not a professor, right? And I pointed out, it was very interesting because he talked about how he teaches the Western classics. You know, he's a big proponent of the Western classics, and he teaches that to all of his students, although he's not a professor. So
is this
I don't know
him?
Yeah, this is him.
And he's gone viral all over the internet, right?
All over the internet. So he was saying that, and when you listen to what he actually teaches, he doesn't mention Aristotle. I don't know how you could teach Western classics and the foundations of Western civilization without mentioning Aristotle. But it's all Platonism, Neoplatonism, is straight through. And it's all Platonic humanism. And I think it was really interesting that right around the same time he's circulating, you have Melania doing her video and talking about how the education is going to be taught by the new robot, Plato. And I'm like, that is not coincidental. That is very intentional. Because you know why? If you think about Platonism, but particularly Neoplatonism through that line, what do they talk about? They talk about emanation towards the one, right? And you hear a lot of these kind of, I would argue that it's kind of a distortion of Christian theosis, where they talk about, it sounds very much like emanation. And I'm not trying to, be pejorative towards the concept, the genuine concept of theosis. However, a lot of times the way it's, discussed in this kind of online sphere, it sounds a lot like Neoplatonism. And they're going to tell you that this is how you get closer to God. Right? You just put a chip in your head and then you can be closer to God. I think this is their conduit for the singularity, for transhumanism. I just don't think it's coincidental that all of these people are talking, they're using Plato and Platonic humanism and they're omitting Aristotle.
So tell our audience real quick in closing, put that into street level terms. What are they pushing when they push Plato?
They're pushing this kind of emanation, the idea that it's all about the forms, right? The allegory of the cave. So if you're not a philosopher king, then you don't know reality. Only the philosopher king can rule and can manage the population.
In other words, in the New Age movement, it would be only the enlightened, only those who have been enlightened, the Illuminati, those who have been enlightened and have seen the secret information through altered states of consciousness. They have been entertained to thought which others cannot understand.
The Gnostic elect.
So they're the elect. It would be very similar to Freemasonry, if you will, and occultism that has secret Gnostic information, hidden knowledge, esotericism, hidden knowledge that the little people don't have. And only if you have been one of the enlightened ones should you be actually ruling and making decisions for everybody else.
Right.
Do I have that right?
Whereas Aristotle talks about hylomorphism, and he was a disciple of Plato, and hylomorphism combines the transcendent with the physical domain. That the idea that through our five senses and through our physical reality, we can know something about the transcendent. We can know truth, and it is accessible to all with a rational, sound mind. This is not something you have to be initiated into, but it is very convenient for those who want to control others. And I'm not trying to negate all of Plato. He had some, value, but I think what they're cherry picking is this idea, because it's very convenient to prioritize the becoming versus the being. And very simply to explain that, Aristotle focuses on us having a fixed nature. He talks about an acorn. There's no question about what the purpose of an acorn is. It's telos, is to become an oak tree. And it's the same thing with humans. We have a purpose. We have a nature. We are wired for flourishing and for virtue. That is the belief. And that is what was embedded and codified in the Declaration of Independence. But this idea of becoming is that we can just become anything. We can rewrite humanity. We can rewrite humans into code, essentially, and program them as nodes. And that's a very convenient philosophy to cherry pick.
So there's no static. There's no static truth. It's always fluid. It's really biological and spiritual evolution, always changing, always moving forward, always advancing, including man advancing spiritually till they tap into an altered state of consciousness, spirit guides. Spirit guides are individuals who are more highly evolved through the process of reincarnation, etc. So there's no static truth. There's no ultimate standard. There's no God. There's no judge. Man, it's really humanism. Let me close with this. Yep. This is from my book, The Coming Religious Right, as you were talking. It made me think of Abraham Maslow. This is Dr. Gerald Atkinson, who was a commander in the Navy, retired, who wrote a lot, and I quoted him over the years about the Frankfurt School. And he said this: the evidence that psychological techniques for changing personality is intended to mean emasculation of the American male is provided by Abraham Maslow, founder of the Third Force Humanist Psychology and a promoter of the psychotherapeutic classroom, who wrote that, quote, the next step in personal evolution is a transcendence of both masculinity and femininity to general humanness, end quote. And isn't that what really we have going on with this whole thing of genders and gender fluidity? And this is in my book from 2016. Abraham Maslow. And of course, he had the idea that there were only certain people that were really able...
The Psyche network.
Thank you. Which only a certain class of people actually have the handle on truth and reality. Very small group of people. And only those people should really be the ones running any society.
Yeah, he actually had a document. It was called Politics 3 that talks about this, holistic politics, and how the Psychian network should run everything, because they were the people who could focus on being values. And being values were once you'd already achieved your hierarchy of needs, which were actually not his focus. His real focus was on this being values so that you could have a Psychian network. And he said that then those people could focus on what's actually important, things like religion and politics and, managing society as a technical problem. He was very influential on people like Robert Mueller, who talked about planetics, right? In his 4,000 ideas, it was supposed to be 2,000 ideas, but planetics is a very similar concept.
And that was the Undersecretary of the United Nations who was into globalism big time. He's the founder of the Global Education Plan, outcome-based education stuff like No Child Left Behind and et cetera. Yeah. He was the Undersecretary of the UN, worked with occultist Alice Bailey, known as the father of global education. So he was into this whole thing. So again, bringing it full circle, kind of at the street level, this idea of a new form of Plato's worldview is only the elite, only the enlightened, only those who understand what is that hidden knowledge should be allowed to rule.
Yeah, so on the top of Plato's divided line is noesis, which sounds a lot like gnosis, right? It's proto-Gnosticism, so you can't say that it's a Gnosticism because it didn't exist at the time. But I think it paved the way for Gnosticism, because only the people who are at the top of Plato's divided line could achieve noesis. Everybody else is at the bottom, at the unintelligible realm, right? They're just staring at the shadows on the cave. And I think we saw this during 2020, right? It's the experts. Trust the experts. If you're not on top of the divided line, you don't know anything, and we can't listen to you. You don't have intuition or common sense. Only the experts can be listened to.
Only those who have found out the hidden knowledge, which of course we find, that's again a big part of Gnosticism. So the elite, this is again why they're the power elite, why they know better than us, why they look down on us, why they don't value us, why it is they can murder us, because again, they have a higher goal and objective. And of course, in the scheme of things, it doesn't matter if you help the little old lady across the street or push her in front of a bus. It really doesn't matter in the end because of reincarnation. The forces will work it out. And of course, this is what they taught the SS officers in the Third Reich. They taught them reincarnation. You were doing the Jews a favor to annihilate them, because with reincarnation, they can come back next time as something better. That was
came
actually
from Alice
taught.
Bailey. Well, it came from Alice Bailey.
That's right.
That comes. It came from Madame Blavatsky. It came straight from the Secret Doctrine.
Who influenced Alice Bailey, though?
Yes, she was the mentor to Alice Bailey. But Madame Blavatsky...
And that's who Hitler was studying, Madame Blavatsky.
Exactly, yeah. Madame Blavatsky, he had the Secret Doctrine right on his nightstand. Yep. So, yeah.
It all comes back to the occult. Well, be very careful, folks. There's a lot of deception out there.
Yes, I was going to say that I actually wrote an article on how this Plato's divided line applies to the influencer class that we're seeing today. So it comes full circle.
Indeed, it does. Courtenay Turner, what's your website, Courtenay?
The best place is probably Courtenay.show. So it's Courtenay, COURTENAY.show. And that'll have, it's my link tree. So it'll have where you can buy the book, where you can find my Substack, my podcast, and all that fun stuff.
Excellent. So. Courtenay, as always, thank you.
Thank you.
Guys, we'll be right back after this break.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage, and now, real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
Join me now is Michael Weiner. Look at this headline: Retirement Roulette. As Americans' 401k nest eggs targeted by shadow banks that are about to implode. The article at the Daily Mail, with the stock market sliding and oil prices surging, Americans already face a shaky outlook for their retirement savings. Now, a new proposal from the Trump administration could expose millions of 401k accounts to a far riskier corner of Wall Street. The plan would open the door for so-called private credit funds, a fast-growing but opaque industry, often dubbed shadow banking, to be included in everyday retirement portfolios. On Monday, Labor Department, which regulates workplace retirement accounts, formally proposed new rules designed to make it easier for 401k plans to include private equity and private credit investments. The move is a major win for Wall Street firms that have long pushed to tap into the $14.2 trillion retirement market. Private credit is a little understood but rapidly expanding part of the financial system where investment firms lend to companies that struggle to get standard bank loans. Last year, it grew to be worth $3 trillion, according to Morgan Stanley. But unlike traditional stock and bonds, these investments can be hard to sell quickly, meaning retirement savers can be stuck if markets turn. Private credit is a complex product that may expose individuals to risks they do not entirely understand, said one economist. Michael, you and I have been warning now for many years about the federal government wanting to get their hands on Americans' 401k. We've played clips of congressional hearings on taking that 401k money that people have but are not using right now, and the government would give them a paper IOU, and the government would take it and start using it. Now we have another thing coming about, which is again referred to as shadow banking. I think, wasn't there a Bee Gees song, Shadow Dancing? Sorry, got distracted for a moment. Shadow dancing, shadow banking, probably the same thing. Anywho, tell me about shadow banking, and is this going to set up for the government to eventually get control of your 401k as well?
Absolutely. And it's not only your 401k, it falls into your IRA too. We've warned about this. We talk about it. So funny, a worldview is we were a year and a half ahead of this. This is the beginning of the government trying to get a doorway into your money. Your 401k, for those people who have 401ks, you do have one solution. And that is, if you're over 59 and a half years of age, you can move part of your 401k, period. So you do have that gateway if you're over 59 and a half years old, even if it's a TSP, 403B or whatever. These companies don't care. You think they care about you? They do not. They own your money. If it loses, you lose. They don't. They show it as an asset on their books, and they'll do whatever the government or anybody else tells them because it's an asset they control for nothing that is really yours. Sort of like Social Security. Reality is you have a gateway out. You have 59 and a half years of age. You can move your 401k. IRAs, similar situation. These are high-risk loans. And it's a funny thing. Why would they want to put you in a position of putting out money for a high-risk loan that the bank won't do, but they'll use your money? A simple reason, they want it to fail. If it fails, the government will take it over. And what do they take over? Your retirement plan. That's exactly what it is. And be aware of the fact you wouldn't loan money to these guys. Would you want to loan money to somebody a bank won't even give money to? Because that's exactly what this is. And the reason why they're coming it up with it is that things are tight with what's going on with the war. The oil prices are way up there. And I don't believe oil prices are going to drop overnight, by the way. Don't believe that. It's going to be a while before it happens. I'm not saying I'm against going after Iran, but I'm saying the offshoot of what's happening has its payback. And one of it is giving a backdoor for the government through the banks. And I've told you before repeatedly, the banks are not your friends. They don't care about you. And by the way, nor does your employer. You might think I'm crazy, but I'm not. Why? Your employer wouldn't make a loan to these companies, but you are with your money. Without your choice, you have no choice. When you have a 401k, you have a list of what they allow you to buy, period. And if they decide to do something with your money, it's sort of like the movie Wall Street with Blue Star Airlines. They'll do what they want to do. And you can't stop them, but you can stop them if you're over 59 and a half years of age. We can help you. You can move your money if you're over 59 and a half years of age in your 401k. So there is a parachute out. As far as you IRA people, we warn you and warn you and warn you. What do we have to do? Do we have to wait until Brandon starts getting all these calls of people who took hits and what do I do? Or I start getting calls? I'm telling you now, this is your opportunity to protect your estate. Literally, you are at risk.
Well,
and
look at this. It says that
today's
proposal aims to protect employers from lawsuits if they offer these investments, a key barrier that has kept them out of most retirement plans until now. Okay, help me understand this. So you have a company that has a big retirement account, and what they're wanting to do is take that retirement account and invest it in a financial instrument where people loan money to people that are having a hard time getting a loan anyway. And I'm guessing that means the interest rate on it is going to be much higher, which means the greater the risk, the greater the reward. So a company can take that retirement account money, put it into one of these shadow banking investments, private credit deals to get a bigger return. But with that comes the risk of losing the individuals that work at those companies' retirement money. But the proposal is coming forward now to protect the company or the employers from the lawsuits if they do this and lose the people's money. Do I have that right?
Absolutely. And then the government walks in and picks it all up for pennies on the dollar. Your money gets depreciated. The company lost nothing. They're totally insulated. It's a win for the banks. It's a win for the company. It's a win for the government because they got access to it. Guess who it's not a win for? You, okay? The American people. And if you don't take action on this with your IRAs, that's exactly why President Reagan created precious metals IRAs 40 years ago. He said without a doubt that we need to make sure American people own an asset that is a tangible that the government cannot do this with. And they are doing it because it's paper. We keep warning you of paper assets. You do not own them. You don't. These people sit back and they play games and you are at risk. We keep warning you. And I'm really, really getting really frustrated when I sit back and listen to people saying, well, I'll go talk to my financial planner. They're in cahoots with the whole thing, too. It's all one big game. And you're the one at risk. Go back to talk to your financial guy. Yeah, it's a great idea. Yeah, you should do it. Because Morgan Stanley's making money. Charles Schwab's making money. Merrill Lynch is making money. You're not. But so is your broker. So is the company. Oh, please, the bullet has to hit you to wake up, literally?
This is like the chicken asking the fox to protect them.
Correct. It's like going to a bear and asking him to give me a hug, literally.
All right, let's see. I got some video clips to play on this, by the way. Here's one right here. Listen to the guy here. I think what's his name? Peter St. Onge. Is he tied back to the Heritage Foundation? I think he is. Look that up for me. Maybe not. I thought he was, but here we go.
Cracks are spreading in the $1.8 trillion private credit industry, like 2008, but this time gutting the load-bearing walls. On Tuesday, the Financial Times reported Ares Management, which runs $623 billion, limited redemptions in one of their flagship funds. That's the asset management equivalent of a bank run, so investors cannot pull their money because it would spark a fire sale that could collapse the entire fund. For scale, $623 billion would make Ares the 9th largest bank in America, just ahead of Capital One. Ares joins a rogues gallery of funds that have locked redemptions, starting with Blue Owl last month, which had been managing just over $300 billion more than American Express before it did start the fire sales. During the Blue Owl drama, JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon warned, when you see one cockroach, there's more. And they're now coming every couple days. We've seen locks in Blackstone, Apollo, Cliffwater. Just last week, Morgan Stanley capped redemptions at a major private income fund. What's driving it is what drives every bank panic: bailouts that encourage risk. Namely, since the 1990s, finance assumes it will get a bailout from the Fed if things go bad. Now, the iron law of finance says more risk is more profit. You can charge more on a risky loan. So bankers do what bailouts pay them to do: get rich or die trying. On the ground, that meant hundreds of billions in loans to dodgy borrowers with sweetheart terms that let the borrower roll over the loan if they can't pay, so-called covenant-light deals. So borrow $100 million at 10%, and when you can't pay the $10 million interest, they just call it a $110 loan and pretend everything is fine. Known in the business as extend and pretend. That hides the fact that borrowers are in default, because a loan in default might be worth 30 cents on the dollar, it might be worth 5 cents. Like Enron, but an assembly line. Meanwhile, the Fed, as always, fed the fire with interest rates. You'll recall back in 2023, a clutch of banks went under because their bonds were worth less after the Fed hiked rates for fight inflation. Rate hikes lower bond prices, which left trillion-dollar holes in bank balance sheets. Well, that happened on steroids to private credit, much of which went to commercial real estate that got double hit from work from home, and blue city mismanagement that crushed office prices with vacancy rates hitting 40-year highs. 1 in 5 offices now sits empty. Even more money went to dodgy corporate borrowers to fund leveraged buyouts that are now swimming in debt, like First Brands that went out last month with $12 billion in default. Sierra Simmons, Citrix, and Vision may have doubled that. with potentially a lot more. Barclays estimates half of the loans are to software and business services that are getting gutted as AI gives it away for free.
Ooh, wow. So are you telling me that we have a lot of people whose retirement accounts are now at risk of disappearing or being greatly diminished?
Well, it's not only what they're talking about that we just talked about here, but one of the key things people should pay attention to what he said is very simple. That paper assets you do not control. BlackRock and all these companies that tell you guess what? Your financial planner says, we're going to get paid X amount of dollars for it. What they don't tell you is what this gentleman just said, that they can change the rules and pay you less anytime they want to. I mean, we keep talking about this and then go rush to your financial person and they could say, I'm wrong until it happens to you. And any of those people with BlackRock and any of those other accounts, you're hit. So it's too late. The people with us are not, because they control it. What we try to do is asset preservation. This whole idea of these IRAs that we've been talking about and all this other stuff, for those people, let me make it real simple. He talked about Enron. I'll make it even better. You heard about Bernie Madoff? How he sold things based on the fact of paying huge amount of interest for it. And the reason why all these people invested billions of dollars with Bernie Madoff or with Enron is because they paid huge interest rates. And guess what? How much is that worth to those people now? Nothing. That's why Reagan created precious metals IRAs, and that's why owning physical right now is so important. That's why banks around the world right now are reinvigorating buying and securing more gold for their positions because they see what's coming. A collapse of the currency markets and the restructuring of digital currency, which you will lose in unless you properly insure and protect yourself now.
You know, this is why when I was 19 years old and I had a financial planner, try to sell me a 401k, I said no. And then again in my 20s, I said no. Always trying to sell you. No. I've never owned a 401k. I don't have any kind of IRA. I don't have any kind of retirement account, period. Because I always figured something like this would happen. Partly because I was reading Larry Burkett. Logan, look what year Larry Burkett books came out. What, 1995, I'm guessing, somewhere around there. I was 97, 98, I don't know. See what year that came out. But I was reading Larry Burkett, and he was talking about Congress. I think he was the one talking about Congress giving paper IUs and then grabbing people's 401ks, et cetera. And I just thought, you know what? What are you doing here? Deferring taxes? You think the tax rate's going to be cheaper down the line? Not to mention, I always felt like I could get a better return on investment if I invested in myself versus, having some kind of retirement account that was in some kind of, mutual funds or whatever. I'm like, I was growing my commercial. I had a commercial cleaning company I was growing. 1992, that sounds about right. Yeah, Larry Burkett. And then how about The Economic Earthquake by Larry Burkett? And I felt like, I could invest in my own documentaries. I mean, I was pushing out documentaries in like 1992 already. I invested eventually, 1994, Larry Burkett's Economic Earthquake. Yep. So I was reading all those kind of books. I also thought I could invest in eventually my own publishing house because I'd been with, I think, 3 publishers. And the last one was the largest Christian publisher in the world. I still sold more books than they did because of radio and traveling. And I finally said, why am I paying them to get a small royalty when I can do it myself? And so I invested in starting Worldview Weekend Publishing. I guess what I'm trying to say is, and I think there's a lot of people out there that understand this, I always felt like it was a better return on investment and more secure to invest in my own projects. And it's worked out well.
That's true. Absolutely.
Not to mention, by the way, in 1993 is when I started buying gold and silver. That's worked out pretty well too, hasn't it, Michael? Since 1993.
Well, I've been buying gold and silver since 1977. So life isn't all bad. I take pleasure in God's money. So did our founders. As I said, the guys in the white wigs, they weren't bad off because they came through with the great idea of backing our money with gold. And you know what? We had a great life until 1971, and we went from no debt to $40 trillion. And all we did is bury ourselves in debt. We get billed for and pay for all the mistakes they make, all the stealing that goes on. We pay for it. So they steal and we pay it back.
Yep.
They spend, we pay it back.
And they inflate our currency, destroy your purchasing power.
And then they take your Social Security money that you put in every week and they play with that. And that's exactly what the founders didn't want. And here we are. So we're warning you now.
And by the way, Michael, we're also warning about how many people are going to find they cannot get their hands on their money. They're told, you can't get it because in the small print, it's now not your money, right? Listen to this. I think this is from CNBC. Listen to this.
We created BCRED 6+ years ago with this idea that we could deliver a premium return to individual investors in non-investment grade credit. And we grew it, as you said, to more than 80 billion of assets, 50 billion plus of equity. We've delivered a 50% premium versus leveraged loans, 10% a year, 8% up last year. And when you think about credit quality, the 400 plus borrowers here, they had 10% EBITDA growth last year. We saw cash flow coverage go up from 1.6 to 2.1, part of that because rates have come down. So when we look at this, we feel pretty darn good.
And you should. So my question is, what's going on then? If you can put up numbers like that and have returns like that and at least can provide metrics on your portfolio that look to be fairly secure, why would 7.9% want to leave?
Well, I think it's also worth noting we had another 4% come in, right?
Okay, well, what's going on here? I just read the description here. And what they are saying here, let's read this description because he's saying like some people want to get out. What's going on? This gentleman said, we're watching a financial crisis unfold in real time. The last time funds started blocking investors from getting their money back, Bear Stearns collapsed 6 months later. 2009, BNP Paribas froze 1.6 billion in funds. Bear Stearns declared two funds essentially worthless and gated a third. So are we hearing, correct me if I'm wrong, is this misreporting? BlackRock is capping withdrawals? Is that true?
That is true. That is the beginning of all of it. And it's not just BlackRock. You can go to Morgan Stanley, you can go to Schwab, you can go all the rest of them. They'll do whatever they want to do. The only people that are insulated from this for America to know is guess who? Politicians, federal judges, big shot federal high-level people. They have all of their money in funds and estates. They used to have annuities with AIG, and when that happened, we bailed them out in 2009. They're not at risk. They don't have any of this stuff. Why not? Why do they just want to stick it to us? Because we're a source of revenue. We are an income source for them. We are literally food for fodder right now. That's why precious metals or owning gold and silver privately and in your estate is more important than ever, because when they start locking the doors on movement, or the old story we remember of musical chairs, music's going to stop. And my clients here and our clients with Swiss America and people that have been listening to us will have plenty of seats at that table. But the other people are going to be sitting on the floor, and there's nothing you can do about it unless you plan ahead. Simple as that. Simple as that.
At what point is this a Ponzi scheme? More people want their money back than money's available.
It's going on right now. The beginning of that's exactly what they're talking about in this article we just read about this private banking situation. That's exactly what BlackRock's saying with these high-end loans. But we'll make you all this money, but if it's going to lose, we're not going to give you anything back because we can't. That's basically a Ponzi scheme. That's why they borrow from Peter to pay Paul, and they keep building it up so they have the money to pay the other people they were in there. They did that with Bernie Madoff. They did that with Enron. They're doing it now with all of these funds. Now they want to do it with the retirement plans that we just talked about, and everything we warned about is happening. You can protect your 401k if you're 59 and a half and over. You can protect your IRA at any age right now if you want to. And for those people who sit back and financial people are saying, don't worry, your mutual funds are fine. Guess what? Guess what we're talking about here, ladies and gentlemen? Mutual funds, okay? They were created for one word. It's called commissions. They make money every day. Please. That's the reality that we look at here. And either you act before you have to, or you act too late, lose, and be sitting in a position where you might be retired or planning to retire, and you can't.
Listen to this. Here we go.
For the first time from one of its flagship private credit funds. Withdrawals requests from the firm's $26 billion HPS corporate lending fund total $1.2 billion in the first quarter. That is more than 9% of the fund's net asset value. This is the first time in the fund's 4-year history that withdrawal requests topped 5%. BlackRock said it would pay out $620 million as part of the quarterly redemption, the 5% threshold at which managers can restrict withdrawals. Look, no one's calling a crisis in this area yet. It is just very interesting that an area of the market which was so unbelievably hot the last couple of years, and of which people have come through this desk and said to Karen and I, oh, the private market is great, it's great for retail investors, it's great for professional investors, it's amazing the opportunities it will unlock, where I have to say the question being asked by this desk for those last 2 years was this an area that was starved of capital in the first place, and what is in it for the retail investor when there are so many professionals who know their way around private markets way better than they do as well. But interesting, we're seeing redemptions at more than one fund now potentially building up as well. Now, as I say, there's been a couple of issues in the private credit market. No one's calling a broader crisis, but it is fascinating looking at this juxtaposed to other things that are going on in the market.
Wow. Well, I don't mean to say I told you so, but we have been saying this for so long. You and I have.
Well, it's like any basic Ponzi scheme. The beginning is a honeymoon. You're getting your money and they're paying you and they're paying you. I had a friend of mine who just did that for 2 years with some guy, and he called me up and he said, oh yeah, I'm getting like 12% a month. I said, you're getting 12% a month. I said, that's going to blow up. And guess what? A year and a half after it was in, the first year and a half, it was great. He lost it all of it. So you get that money at first. That's what's going on with all these things. But as soon as there's one wrinkle, as soon as there's one problem, they want to limit your money. And the next thing you know, they'll stop your money because they don't have it. And it's just literally they don't have enough money coming in to pay what they had going out. That's as simple as it is, ladies and gentlemen. That's what goes on with all that things. And that's why you protect yourself with metal. Because guess what? Nobody controls it except you. You have it. You need to get money. You can. Nobody can manipulate it. Okay, and in an IRA or a 401k that you can move into a precious metals IRA, precious metals IRAs were an offshoot of President Reagan, and he was 100% right. I sat there at the Mint. I want Americans to own something in their retirement plan that the government does not have direct access to. If you own metal, you own it privately, they don't have access to it. But Ponzi schemes and all these things are ones, you know, Bernie Madoff at one time was one of the founders of NASDAQ. I mean, he was recommended by every big 8 firm out there. Enron was a big, wonderful player. What happened? Sooner or later, they didn't have the money to pay you. So right now, we're stepping into some very dark territory. Then they're going to go digital with your money. Why do you think they want to go digital? It gives them more time to play with the chips on the table. And you, by the time you figure out what's happened, you won't know. That's why we've been telling people on an ongoing basis the last year, Brandon and myself, to please start offsetting and protecting yourself. Somebody says, what is enough? Well, you tell me something better right now. Because I'll tell you what, if anything else was better, central banks would be buying it. And central banks around the world are buying gold, period. They're not buying U.S. stocks. They're not buying BlackRock issues. They're not buying mutual funds. They're not buying bonds. They're buying gold, period.
Let me play this clip. Listen to this news report.
Outrage in Queensland tonight after a local woman rocked up to her bank to withdraw cash, only to be told they didn't have any. Taryn Compton wanted to grab some notes to pay a tradie, but when she got to the ANZ ATM, she realised she'd forgotten her EFTPOS card. When she asked the teller for the money instead, she was told the bank doesn't carry cash.
And Taryn Compton's here to tell us all about our terrible banking experience. Taryn, what did you think when you walked into a bank only to be told they don't have cash?
I thought
thought it was absolutely crazy. I thought she must have misheard what I wanted, if I'm honest. How can you go to a bank and not be able to get your own money out?
Taryn, that's what I'm confused about. So what's in the bank if there's no cash? Isn't there, if you open up the safe, what's in there? How did they explain it to you?
They just said, I'm so sorry, we can't help you. There's nothing we can do. We don't have cash here.
So did you think maybe that was a temporary situation? That maybe they were going to get some cash tomorrow?
No, she actually said, we don't carry cash anymore. We can't help you. She did say, if you're desperate for it today, you can transfer it to another bank and try and get it out there, but we can't help.
Was she in on how absurd this was? Like, did she get it was like you were walking into KFC and they said, sorry, we don't do chicken?
No, she wasn't. She was just, I'm really sorry, we can't help you. We just don't have money here anymore.
Taryn, do you think that banks should carry money, as in cash?
I do. They have got my money in their banking system. I should be able to access it, right? You have got my hard-earned cash. Where is it? I want it. And when the answer that you get is I just don't have it, it really does get you thinking about our whole banking system.
Yeah, and again, you go places and they don't take cash, right? So we went to the rodeo in January. We love the rodeo. They do need to be a little more humane to the little calves. My wife thinks they're a little tough on them. I agree. I'm a softie when it comes to animals, but I'm not a animal rights nut. But the bulls can take care of themselves. But we go to the rodeo, and there was a little halftime there for the rodeo. We go out to get some bottled water and popcorn, and I pull out a $10 bill or whatever it was, and the lady's like, we don't take cash. And, all right, fine. I cut down on employees possibly stealing or, having a bunch of cash and then trying to get it over to the bank and getting robbed on the way there. I understand. Okay, whatever. Well, there's a reason a lot of banks are running out of cash and don't want to carry cash because they're penalizing cash, apparently. They penalize you if your business brings cash, I'm told, some of them. Maybe not all of them. But if the businesses don't want to carry cash, and they have their reasons for not wanting to do it, then the banks don't get cash. And if everything is going more and more to a central bank digital currency, there is the agenda here to get people used to the idea of weaning them off cash, right? Get where there's no cash, they're getting them used to it. Now, when there is no cash, how are you going to get around if they decide, again, we're going to debank conservatives, we're going to debank Christians, we're debanking people that have certain views. We know that during the whole COVID era, Joe Biden years, people were debanked, accounts shut down. You can't bank here, banning their online accounts. This can come back big time. And I think it will. I mean, eventually Revelation 13 says no one will be able to buy or sell without the mark. So I'm not planning on being here during that time. But do I really want to be in a system where I have to rely on them allowing me to have money? Or do I want to be outside the system with a life raft, with a life jacket? That's all I'm saying. And now I know this is overseas. I think this was in, Australia or wherever it was. But you can see this happening. This is going to come to America. It absolutely is. Yeah, this was an Australian bank. This is coming to America.
It's already here. It's already here. And not only is it already here, this whole idea, what that lady said, should hit home to most people if you really listen to what people say. She said, I put my hard-earned money in there. It's my money. And guess what? The bank doesn't think so. Once you put it in there, they look at it as your money. And this whole idea of digital banking is the final step in securing all of our assets. They started that in 1971 when they made your money worthless. And they're doing it the rest of the way now when they're taking away your freedom. Like you said, Brandon, you wanted to pay $10. Now you had to put it on a credit card so they know it. They want to make sure they think they can run your life better than you. And we see what they've done to this country. We've seen legitimately the solution that it has created, with some people thinking everybody's rich and those lunatics out in the street just recently calling for communism in America. I don't really know if there is a way of bringing America back together again. I don't know if it's possible. just based on the stupidity that sits out there right now. And that goes for the ultra rich who sit back and talk liberally as long as they can live rich or make their children rich. As long as they can confer that around, they don't care. They want to support all the lunacy that goes out there. And sooner or later, somebody will come in and make sure it's ending. So
listen to this clip here. This is from the UK, Michael.
Can I have a word with you? I'm now in Santander Bank, right? What are you doing, sir? I'm filming you and I'm recording this conversation. I'm coming to the bank to withdraw £2,500. Are you going to let me? I've got £11,500 in my account. Are you going to let me? Are you going to let me to have the money or not? Hello, are you going to let me have the money or not? Huh?
Unfortunately, I can't remove that restriction that's on there.
You can't remove the restriction. You can't remove the restriction. Okay. After your colleague told me that I'm a liar, yeah. So your colleague told me I'm a liar yesterday. I've come in to withdraw £2,500, yeah, and you're not going to let me have my money today. Is that right?
But you can still use your card.
I'm not. To answer the question, please. Yeah, I can still use my card. Are you going to let me withdraw £2,500 from my account today? Yes or no? In the branch.
And what is the £2,500 for, Mr. Jackson?
Buying a motorbike for my son.
Right. Okay. So have you got any evidence of the motorbike?
No, I haven't got any evidence of a motorbike at all. No, I haven't got it. 'Cause I don't know what one I'm getting yet.
Okay, so if you don't know what you're getting, how do you know how much you need?
Because I've got a budget. I've got a budget of £2,500 for the motorbike. So that's why I want to withdraw £2,500 from my account today.
Right, yeah. So when you find the bike for your son, if you can show us some evidence of that.
So you're not. So I need to show you evidence. So I need to show you evidence. I'm doing it.
Video call of this.
Really?
You can't film me without my permission, sir. You cannot film me.
So you're not going to give me the money, no?
I'm going to hang up this immediately.
Absolute joke, this place.
Call the security.
Absolute joke. You're an absolute joke, this place. Won't let me draw out my money. It's a f***ing joke.
Okay, so. Did I hear her asking, why are you withdrawing the money?
Well, you not only heard her why, she asked for details on all of it. Again, we've warned people in shows a year ago of this going on. You don't think it's going on here right now? What do you think just happened to that one lady I told you about? Wait till it happens to you. Well, it's none of their business why he needs his money. If you show us a receipt, we'll let you have the money. Excuse me. You didn't ask me what you needed when I put it in here. That's what we talk about financial freedom. If you want financial freedom, you better start planning now. Or you can run to your financial planner who is part of the problem, not the solution, and see what they have to say. Good luck with that. Really, good luck with that. Because that's not going to help you. They're part of the person like that lady there pushing the phone down. They're part of the same problem. It's an agenda. So financial freedom is in what you control. It's like Brandon talks about how he built his life. And he was kind enough to share some of his investment strategies with me through the years. And guess what? He controls his destiny. How much of your destiny do you control right now? And how much do you not control? And why is it so important? If anything, this whole thing in Iran is showing you is the beginning of a meltdown. And either you take action with your 401k, you could take it 59.5 with your IRA, take action, or your private money in the bank, create your own bank. If that guy had gold in his possession, he'd be walking out with his money right now.
Absolutely.
He can get cash.
All right, guys, get your free report. That's all I'm telling you. I don't give financial advice. I give financial opinion. 1-877-864-1072, 1-877-864-1072. Or worldviewgold.com. Fill out the form, get the free packet. Your phone's been ringing quite a bit lately. People are apparently moving money from, are putting gold into their IRA. So you're writing a lot of IRAs, gold for IRAs, I hear. And that means that money then is actually put into physical gold and put into a depository for safekeeping. And then if they ever want to take possession of it, they can pay the tax and take possession. But by putting it into the gold in a depository, that gives them a lot more protection and independence, right?
And it's in their name, and they're the only one that has access to it. The government does not. They can drive there and pick it up if they want to. It's theirs. Nobody could stop them, but the moment it leaves that building, it's a tax distribution. But again, it goes back to the fact of many times Chris and I are dealing with people that we talk to, and I had somebody the other day, and the first thing he said, well, I called my financial guy, and he said, gold's not any good. Really? Well, good luck with that. I just don't even have an answer for that. It's
well,
so
again, you had a guy come over from L.A. after the L.A. fires, and all he could get access to was his gold, and he walked out the door with over $200,000 and a check after he handed his gold over to you, right?
Correct. And he still hasn't got all his money back from his paper. They haven't been able to decipher it all. Still not getting all of what he thought he had. Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Worldviewgold.com, worldviewgold.com. Michael Weiner checking in. Thank you, Michael.
Have a good night.
All right, guys, that's our broadcast for tonight. Roll the music. Let's call it a night. Worldviewfoundation.com. If you appreciate what we're doing, will you support us? Worldviewfoundation.com. Worldviewfoundation.com. You also find our mailing address there if you prefer to support us through the mail. Hey, don't forget about our free app for iPhone and Android. Free. Brought to you in part by our foundation. Be sure to check that you want notifications so when there's breaking news, you get notified that we have gone on the air. You get your free apps at worldviewtube.com/apps. Till next time, I'm Brandon House. May God save America. Take care.